This meeting of the trustees of the Lamesa Independent School District is now in order. It is 6 p.m. on January 16, 2025. A quorum is present with all board members except April Martinez. The meeting has been duly called, and the notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. Mr. Ritchie, would you please lead us in prayer?
If you please bow with me. Dear Lord, just thank you for the new year. Thank you for everyone's health. Thank you for everyone being able to come back to Lamesa ISD safely. Just bless the people in this room on Board Appreciation Night. The 7 people that do an unpaid job to continue to give back and to impact the students and staff of Lamesa ISD. Just thank them. Thank the people in the room for showing up and supporting Lamesa ISD, and just thank all our students, our staff, and our community. We live in a great place. Just bless us as we move forward and watch over us in the year 2025. And in your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Mr. Ritchie. Okay, I guess is there anyone signing?
No, ma'am.
I guess we'll do student parent recognition.
Yes, ma'am. And I told Casey last year, I remember, and I didn't remember until I saw her here last year, she sat here through a long student and staff recognition. So I decided tonight's recognition should be exactly what it's for. It's board recognition. So y'all are going to be a recognition for the night. And I don't know what all you got. I told Cindy, it looks like y'all going to have to get a trailer to carry all of this stuff.
Now we can't take leftover food because we have so much other stuff to take.
I've seen some of it, but and they're not going to talk now, they're going to talk later, and if they kind of want to talk about what they gave you, they can then, but it's one of those deals where you can't be appreciated enough. I mean, I'm not even going to look at Ernest when I said, I could write you $1 million check, and it wouldn't be enough, because I know Ernest's like, well, I'll go ahead and take that check. But
Try it.
but genuinely, y'all, I was thinking when you said all members present except for April, and I sat in that back for a long time, and guys, y'all are here all the time. Y'all don't ever miss. Y'all are involved, y'all are influential, y'all are impactful, and I just hope y'all know how much y'all appreciate it, even if it's just with a small sampling of gifts. But y'all are my appreciation for the night, and I still would like a picture of them in the paper, Mary Elizabeth. But if y'all wouldn't mind standing up, and just everybody that is here, if y'all give me a round of applause for the board and just how much we appreciate it.
Well, do you want to do that after when April gets
Look at
here?
the end of the.
But do we appreciate April?
We'll make it known to everybody. Yeah.
We'll take it. But if she doesn't make it before we leave, let's get a picture. Okay? Perfect.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Was that better?
That's fine. Sometimes I sit around for an hour or two, so this is perfect.
All right, now we'll go to the 2023-24 audit presentation.
All right, well, good evening, everyone. Happy Board Appreciation.
Thank you.
I'm Casey Gast, and I was the audit partner in charge of your 23-24 financial audit again this year. I'm with Bollinger, Seegers, Gilbert, and Moss out of Lubbock, Texas. And, kind of when we were here last year, we were definitely in a different place than we were last year to this year. Kind of with a more stable CFO in that role. He had a whole year. So with that, the district did receive an unmodified opinion, or the clean audit opinion, which is the one you want. It's what TEA is looking for. So everything in this bound, everybody should have the bound audit report in front of them, is free of any material misstatements and can be relied upon by outside parties. Also with that, in a governmental audit, not only are you looking at the financials, you have a lot of compliance stuff, even a lot of compliance stuff through TEA as well. And so looking at that, we did not have any issues or comments we need to make on any of those compliance components of that. We did have to do a single audit again this year, which y'all are no stranger to that. If you receive over $750,000 in federal money, you are required to have this additional compliance audit. This year, the major program that we selected was child nutrition, and there were no issues or findings within that program that we would need to note tonight. With that in the front of your audit, so there is a letter, just one letter that's kind of by itself in the front, and this is just a management comment letter. It will get sent to TEA, but it's not part of the audit package. But basically, when we look at the G1 or your budget schedule here in a little bit, there were a lot of functions that were overspent, and I think discussing with Ron and stuff, I think he didn't get the accurate numbers in. This actually happened at another district. It was pretty crazy too, but and just that, you know, you only have until the end of the year to get those budget amendments made, and if you don't and you overspend, I mean, so basically what this letter is going to say and what TEA then will send to you is just a letter saying don't overspend your budget. So no dings in the first, no dings anywhere else, but just kind of just be aware that, you know, it is kind of, you're kind of held, your feet are kind of held to the fire because you have to do it by the end of the year, and something could come up that you didn't know about. So just, it really is important as y'all are making those budget amendments and looking at that stuff that those are important. So so with that also, you know, you have this big audit report, and like in prior years, I provided kind of a little highlight sheet to kind of go over those numbers, and as you know, in a governmental audit report, it's not comparative. So this sheet actually gives us some comparative data that we can kind of look over, and those, I just kind of want to hit those highlights and kind of see where we were last year to this year. At the very top, we've got our cash and cash equivalents, and so our cash, that did go down. We were at 16 million versus about the 14.5 million in the prior year, and we'll kind of look at where those decreases are as we go through here. You can see you no longer have the capital project fund cash that has been completely spent. We pretty much closed capital projects, I believe, last year, and then so obviously then there was a little bit still left to be paid, and then so no cash this year from the capital projects. Moving down into your receivables, payables from your other governments. Not a lot to note here. Your state overpayment, which is technically just a timing issue. It's when you do all your settle-ups and your true-ups from the state, either they owe you more money or you owe them money, and they don't ask for a check back. They're just going to reduce your cash for the next year's allotment. So that's just really what that is. But you can see that went down. It was about $2 million last year. That's the number in the bracket. To only about $658,000. Once again, usually just a timing difference. From a fund balance standpoint, we did have a decrease in the general fund balance, and we'll look at that kind of as we go down, but I will say that we did pass that indicator 6. I don't know if y'all remember last year that was going to hurt you in the first rating because you did not have at least 75 days of operational cash in your unassigned, but y'all did a board resolution and were able to uncommit some funds for 23-24, which then puts you back in compliance with indicator 6. So next first rating, you shouldn't have an issue on that indicator. From a debt service side of things, we did increase fund balance a little there. Your food service fund, you're at $480,000. So with food service, TDA does have strings attached, and they tell you can't have over 3 months, or they're going to call it excess fund balance, and you have to have a spend down plan. So what we were kind of looking at, your 3 months is actually $485,000, so we fall below. But there was another silver lining. In September, they approved to move that to 6 months. So now we're really below that. So I think they were tired of getting spin down plans from districts, because I had a lot of districts that were over that 3 months, so they were probably tired of dealing with those. Like I said, capital projects was done really 2 years ago, or at least completed last year, sorry, I should say. So that gave us total fund balances of everything of $15.6 million versus $16.4 million in the prior year. If we'll move into that next section right below that, that's going to be our general fund only, and so we'll kind of see what happened in our general fund to, cause us to kind of decrease overall. From a local revenue standpoint, we did have a decrease. This was pretty much across the board at most of my districts, because you were required to compress that M&O rate. So you're pulling that M&O rate down, and even though we had a slight increase in the property values, it wasn't enough to offset, so that decrease in the M&O rate did come down. With that said, as that comes down and your property tax collections come down, the state says they'll step in and kick up more money to kind of do that offset. Not always dollar for dollar, but if you do look down in that next section, your state revenues did increase from 12.5 to 12.9 in the current year. So we did kind of have the ADA was down, but then once having the decrease in the M&O rate, that pushes it the other way. But there also was a decrease in the available school fund, which that rate's set by the State Board of Education, and that's just a rate that they pay you on for prior year ADA. So but that was down. That rate was down this year. From federal revenues, another thing that we kind of saw across the board is SHARS was down pretty tremendously. I don't think that's kind of a shock to anybody, but across the board, that's where that decreased funding is on the federal side. Sale of real property, that's what y'all sold some stuff at auction. And then on the non-current loans, you can see almost $1.4 million. Those are all the technology purchases done right at the end of the year, with your first payment not necessarily being due until 24-25. So that gave you total revenues and other resources of 19.8 million versus the 19.6 in the prior year. So overall, pretty comparable from a revenue and other resource standpoint. If we'll move into the expenditure side, we see a pretty significant increase in what I call our instructional side, which is 15.7 versus 13.4. But in that is that big 1.4 million of technology purchases and 4 buses. And I guess 4 was the magic number, because I think y'all are like my third or fourth district that bought 4 buses this year. So everybody needed buses. Or they're finally coming in from COVID and stuff. People probably had them on back order, but it seemed like everybody was buying 4 buses. That was the magic number. From a general admin and maintenance and operations, you were down. We had the parking lot and roof repairs in the prior year. But just keep in mind, too, that in that there was a pretty big increase in your insurance costs. Once again, something we've seen across the board at all our districts, but still overall down. From the debt service side, any of those other notes payable we had outstanding, we've paid those off last year. So there was nothing this year, but now that we've started this new technology note, we'll see those in the next year. From a capital expenditure standpoint, last year we kind of had quite a bit that, or not quite a bit, we had a little bit that we were still spending down from the capital project fund that didn't get completed. So it had moved over into the general fund, and we did not have that this year, so capital outlay was down pretty significantly. Other payments, nothing really to note there. And then that transfer out, so you can see there's nothing this year, but last year the big one was also completing those capital projects to kind of finish those out as well. So expenditures overall were down, so you had 31.3 million in the current year versus the 22.9 in the prior year. So your net decrease of fund balance was still about the 1.4 million, which if you kind of look at it, I mean, I know the technology purchases kind of get offset because you've got kind of the other resource to kind of offset, so you did a note payable for it. But if you think about it, you bought 4 buses. So not all of that is really for maintenance and operations, I would say. You know, I think you have some pretty big capital outlay that you won't have going into the future. And like I said, I want to look at that budgetary schedule again, and we'll kind of look at the budget side. But I know for 24-25, only about 20% of districts, kind of what I would call the Lubbock and Amarillo area, adopted balanced budgets. So about 80% were in deficit, and not little deficits. You know, they're pretty big budgets. Of those 20%, how realistic are their balanced budgets? I don't know. But, you know, I can make a balanced budget if I need to. You know, so, you know, it's just kind of, it's all in how you take it or see it. But I do think that it says something that we're all you know, all districts are really in that deficit balance right now. And I was kind of talking with Kevin earlier, you know, your legislation's meeting, and this is really just a personal opinion, but vouchers I think are going to get passed. And I think then they're going to release the vouchers, plus they're going to release some more funding to the districts, because I think they've been holding a lot of the recapture payments that have been coming in, because over the last 3 years we've seen for our oil districts, you know, it doubled, tripled, quadrupled, just boom, boom, boom on their values, and they were sending back more and more, but nobody's foundation was changing. So I'm thinking they're going to release this money with the vouchers and then say how good the vouchers did and how it's helped the school districts. But that's to be determined. But once again, kind of a personal opinion, but I think it's going to be kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. They're going to get these out, but they're going to release the money that was already owed to you, which it will be a blessing, because I think all the districts do need a lot more funding. Yeah. But we'll see in 2 to 3 years once that kind of runs its course.
Exactly.
So, but not trying to say, oh, y'all about to get a lot of money. No, I don't know that. My crystal ball did not tell me that. I wish it did.
But it's the same thing I was telling them. It's more optimistic than it was last biennium.
I think so. But not a lot we could do. I mean, I think kind of what I've been having to tell districts is, you know, you have to do with the best with what you have. You know, if you're looking at all your revenue sources, you have little to no control over most of these. You can't set your property values. You can't. The state tells you what your M&O rate should be. You can't get the kids to come to school. So, I mean, you're kind of at the mercy of a lot of different factors. So kind of with that said, you do have about 6.6 months of fund balance in your general fund, which means at the end of August of 24, had you not received another dime, you could have operated at these current spending levels for 6.6 months. So, you know, I always kind of say the TDA rule of thumb is 3 to 4 months is what they call, kind of consider a healthy or minimum fund balance even, and that's really tied into that indicator. That's the 75 days of cash. So, like I said, so we're above that. I mean, you can see, you know, we've had the trend of coming down. That's been quite a bit of my schools, where you're having this decrease in ADA, property values aren't really helping you out, M&O's declining, so it's kind of this perfect storm of funding. So, with, once again, factors you can't control. Sorry, not trying to be all doom and gloom here. It was still a successful audit. With that, the next couple of line items there were just kind of what base, and those were your drivers of your revenue. That, like I said, the ADA had decreased, your state aid did increase, and then you can see your M&O values. And you have two values because you have the Chapter 313 agreements. So you have assessed values for your M&O side, and you have assessed values for your INS side. You had two 313 agreements, and I believe one was done in 23-24. It was on year 10. So that one would go away, and your second one was in year 8, so it has 2 years left. So you'll start seeing that INS and that M&O get a lot closer, as you can kind of see that trend already happening, but those will come, once the 313 agreements run out, then you'll have the same rate for M&O and INS again. So just kind of wanted y'all to know how that was kind of working there. From the debt service side of things, we had the values kind of come down, but y'all did implement a rate increase on the INS side, so you saw a little increase there, and then your debt service payments were, per your bond amortization. So we increased the debt service about $454,000. The next line item, or the next little section there, is your fixed assets. So you have fixed assets of almost $70 million. That's net of depreciation, and then outstanding bonds and debt of about almost $22 million. So just kind of some highlights there that will be in the footnotes as well. So I threw a lot at y'all. Any questions over this sheet or anything?
So that 6.6 months worth of operating cash, that's not hurting our school first.
Nope, not this. Yeah.
Okay.
So you're good there. By uncommitting those funds, if that was what was hurting, there's different categories or different buckets of your fund balance. And TEA said if you had any in that committed bucket, you don't have to count those. You can only count your unassigned and assigned. So by then uncommitting that boost, that unassigned fund balance, which makes you now in compliance with the 75 days. If there are no questions on that, I do, like what I was been telling y'all to look at the budgetary schedule, so it's actually in the bound audit report on page 46. So on page 46, this is your budgetary, so it's going to show what we originally budgeted, kind of what we thought, and then really what actually happened here. And if you look over on the far right, you can see all the brackets in the expenditures, and that's where TEA will look. They do look at the schedule. And then, like I said, here's where the comment is of get your budgets amended by the end of the year. So we kind of, a lot of times if it's just one or two functions, I'll normally just note it in the audit, but kind of across the board it was pretty much every function. So that's why we warranted the management letter on that side. And then if you're kind of looking across, I like to look at the third line from the bottom. So when y'all originally set the budget, you were thinking 636 of a deficit. Then you kind of amended to the million, but you actually ended up at about the almost $1.5 million actual deficit for the year. Any questions on?
And you may not can answer this. On those variances up there in the revenues, from a budget standpoint, that those two unfavorable variances of $928,000 on state revenues and then the $193,000 deficit on the federal program. And I guess I'm specifically asking on the state. I mean, is that we just missed the mark probably on the foundation side, or what?
On that, I don't.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what.
that'd be the.
That's my guess.
That would, then maybe it didn't get amended because they didn't get amended, and it could be that if a lot of times because if certain people know they're only looking at expenditures, they're not really messing with the revenue side, probably as much as they should too, but it looks like whatever y'all had done initially, the numbers never got amended. If you look at column 1 and 2, they're the same, at least for on the state side, and the federal side, or both sides.
Both.
And I think that just kind of goes to like looking at that budget, you know, to your actuals and, you know, trying to get this as more accurate as possible. For 24-25, there is a new standard in this for the audit report that will be focused more on this budgetary schedule. So you're going to end up having a variance column in between your original and amended. I don't really know what the angle is to have to add that still, but you're going to have that. And then also the MD&A, which is at the front, which is a more narrative discussion of your financials. They're going to make it more budget focused as well. Still don't know what that looks like, but just to kind of keep it there, they are putting a lot more focus on the budget for 24-25. The other schedule I want to look at is a couple pages back on page 56. So this schedule on 56 is your property tax schedule. That kind of just has an overview of the 10 years. So you're looking at your tax rates over the last 10 years, the property values, and then kind of on the very far, almost the very far right column, it gives you a total of $934,000 that is still outstanding from property taxes. And then kind of above just tells you by year how much is still outstanding. And so looking at that tax rate, you know, about 10 years ago it was $1.17, and we're down now to 83 cents. So it's a pretty, if you're thinking about it in tax revenue, that's a pretty significant change. And then your property values are kind of not super volatile, but you know, kind of up and down, but not a lot of movement.
Do you see that in your other districts?
The property value side,
Yes, ma'am.
oil's going to be different.
Yeah.
But yeah, for the most, if you're heavy, just kind of residential and everything,
Single-family
they kind of are pretty steady, I guess.
So we have $934,000 pretty much in outstanding unpaid taxes
Unpaid taxes.
From all the last decade.
in the last decade.
And or back, because it's 2015 and prior.
Really, in the last
2 years, 3 years.
3 years.
Yeah, you've got a big chunk.
4 years.
Yeah.
Big
And once again, that's not on you to go collect that. That's not the district's.
Does it ever get collected?
The lawyers will get involved. Usually the appraisal districts will have lawyers that go in and try to get the collections, or the other thing they do is they foreclose on the property, and then now it becomes the school district's or the other taxing entity's property, which then is not on the tax roll. So you have no benefit from it.
Yeah.
Until it sells, if ever. So yes and no, I guess. It could and could not get paid.
Do we know what our collection percentage is?
Oh, I don't think I have that.
I'm sorry.
Do you have a calculator?
I can't add 2 plus 2 without a calculator.
Me either. We're the same kind of person here.
Do you know, David?
I did, but now I can't remember either. But I do have a calculator. Give me a minute and I'll
Okay. Crunch some numbers for us.
yeah.
And then if you'll kind of note, we do have that note at the bottom of this just talking about the assessed values you see right here are the M&O side, but then we do disclose what the INS property values were too, or at least just for the current year. Any other questions while we're getting that? Well, I think that's kind of all I have from the audit point, but I do have our benchmarking that was in the front also. It's kind of side to side. And this is purely informational, you know, kind of just for your perusal. So keep in mind this is for 22-23 data. So kind of looking back a couple of years, but this is what was available on TEA's website. And this just kind of gives us some of those benchmarks, some of those trends or highlights, showing the ADA for, I believe this is your football district plus some surrounding communities. Their general fund balance, net general fund expenditures, months of fund balance, expenditures per kid, the tax rates, the changes in assessed values, outstanding debt, and also debt per ADA. And then in y'all's area, y'all have some outliers, which really drives up the averages that are down at the bottom.
Two schools have increased enrollment. Everybody else has dropped.
It has been rare that I have got to say, you increased ADA.
Like we've been averaging about 40, about that. I went back all the way about a decade, and especially since COVID, we've been averaging about that per year. It's interesting to see. I only see two that have gone up.
Well, and the ones that look like they've gone up, they don't have to compete with other. They have all the taxing entity in the county, and they don't have to. I mean, where we've split with 2 or 3 other taxing school districts,
Yes, sir.
they get the whole county in their taxing. So that wouldn't that make a difference?
Yes, sir.
I mean, I guess with Brownfield, you've got Wellman and Seagraves and Meadow, and they've always traded students.
Like Andrews.
And yeah, I don't know a lot about Andrews, but
I
that,
mean, they don't have another school district
Do they
in the
not?
county,
Okay.
so they get all the.
yeah, they would.
If I'm figuring that right, the collection is about 94%.
I would have said somewhere in the 90s, yeah. So, about average.
Shouldn't that be a little higher?
We've seen higher and we've seen lower. But on average, COVID kind of also changed some things on those collections too, where we were seeing most districts at like 96, 98%. But, kind of coming up, I think also you're on a high inflationary years too, and we have seen the outstanding balances tick up in those last several years too. So I would probably say the collection percentages have come down, but I would agree that, yes,
Still could be higher.
they should be higher. Well, I appreciate y'all having me tonight. Like I said, I'd entertain any other questions, and y'all are my last for this year. Save the best for last.
There you go.
You got a question, Nathan?
Yeah, any
I got a
questions?
question.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Casey.
Thank you.
Thanks. And I have a sheet to, if and when y'all approve it, so I don't know if that's later in the meeting.
Thank you.
Ms. Riddick, you can, once they approve and they sign that, if you can just scan it to us. Yes. Thank y'all. Have a good meeting.
Thank you.
Be safe.
We'll make note that April entered the meeting at 6:28.
Yes.
I guess now we'll go into route changes to operation.
We can do it later because
We
we'll
can do
just
it
need
later
to
because
scan
she's
it.
not,
So
yeah,
Yes, she
she'll get it to you.
we'll send it electronically.
So we're going to count them for everybody.
If we have it, board action.
I just don't ever leave you.
When Ned and I are on it, we'll have it
I sit
scanned.
there and watch them sign.
You're right behind them, huh?
Yep. Sign right there. Check that.
You must have a trust issue.
Yeah, probably in some cases.
Anybody want to approve the?
Make a motion to approve as presented.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Okay, now we'll do the financial report. You're up, Mr. Reed.
Yes, ma'am. And I'm just going to stay up here because I think I left with this as well. So I'm not going to lie to you today. I missed Ron more than I had. I got the audit 2 days ago, and I was sitting there going through it again and again, and then I remembered about mid-morning, oh my gosh, we still have to do the financials for this board meeting. So Kylie's been awesome. She helped me run them. I did call Ron. He was working out. The guy that helped me, yeah, he said he's staying, or at least he said he was working out. He may not have been. But just going through it as we normally do, and I'm going to come back at the end and kind of talk about my opinion of, and it's not an opinion I haven't shared with y'all before, about kind of where we're at financially and where we've got to go. But if you look at the general fund by function, there has not been a lot of changes in that.
I tell you, I look at number 1, 2, 3. The fourth column is the one I look at, and I always highlight the ones that percentages are a little high. The same ones that have been high all year are still high. But as I've said, a lot of that is because those are ones that get a lot upfront spending at the start of the year for the programs and the curriculums and things like that. We do feel, and I'm going to bounce around a little, we do feel, and I do want to brag on Callie. With Ron being out, Callie's been a great help. Now, that being said, we got to get somebody in that role pretty quick, and we've got a plan to do that, hopefully by the end of January. We've got a couple more interviews that we're looking at. There are no CFOs out looking for jobs. You just got to find somebody with a financial background that can come in and latch on to school finance, because Kevin will tell you it's not the same. Agreed? And, so just trying to find somebody that I think can come in and grasp it, but is also a good culture fit. It's been tricky. But we do have a couple of people coming in next week, and hopefully we can get a move on that. Because for me, this audit kind of ended it. Now we got to switch our gears to next year. Back onto this on the next page. That one is pretty straightforward. There's one that's actually blank because we actually had no monthly capital outlay over the month. If you keep on going through it. Check registry, and I tell you all this all the time, is really where I spend my time looking over this stuff. And I just look for things that jump out at me. The big one on that first page is that $80,000 for Airmark. Company fees that are spaced out throughout the school year. Second page, we still had a couple of things coming from the service center. We have yearly contracts with the service center that we have to take care of. That was the big ones on that page. That Nextiva, that phone service is something that back in the day, 2-3 years ago, we wouldn't have had as big, but when the safety thing, and that's one of the things I was talking about with we put these phones in every classroom now, for security, and we got a lot of that paid for through the grant, but that's one of those things, and I'm going to talk about the legislator later. It's still a monthly fee that's kind of gone up on us that we've always had it, but we haven't had it to the extent that we have it now. Down at the bottom of that, we had to do some urinals and supplies for the special education bathroom. We did some reconfiguring. I'm assuming that was at South, I think. Yeah, that's where that one was at, because we had to redo some stuff in that. The electric service has been a little lower this month. Both electric and water were down this month for past years. Gas is, we've got Atmos on that next page. You also see some staff appreciation. TEA, UIL, they provide guidelines about how much you can spend on your staff, but we do always try to give all our staff something small for Christmas. You can see one right there. I think that may have been Ginsler. Did you give away tumblers to your people? Just little things like that. You can only spend, I think the price is it $25? It's $25, and we don't ever hit that. We go below that. Got some CTE stuff on that page. We got something on that page 6 that's quarterly. That was a pretty big one. Dawson County Senate. And let me talk about that Dawson County deal. She talked about the collections. I've been to those. I go to those board meetings. I've never really focused on having that conversation with them, because the focus of the conversation, and this, I've always had, is our values. And I think that was good for me to see, because I go to all of those board meetings, that's also a conversation to be had, is why is our collection rate 94% when it should be 96, 97, 98%. The appraisals is in the process of changing, because I told y'all last year we did get them to change companies. And so I do think that, that's good and bad news, because that's the one that, if it gets out in the paper, we're raising taxes when we're really not. We're just raising the value that is taxed. But that was good for me to hear, because I think that's another point of conversation that I need to start having with our representative about, another thing down at that appraisal district that we got to kind of improve upon. From what I understand, the appraisal district blames me for a lot of things. Evidently, then when they answer the phone, they say, you need to blame Mr. Ritchie. That is his fault. So I guess I should take my role and run with it down there.
Have you ever asked them
Not about the collections, no.
collection rate?
No, sir.
Yeah, because that's not good.
94, yeah, that was good for me to hear. Yeah. So I may mention that the next time I visit with our board member. And our board member's been awesome. Ever since we kind of been a lot more proactive, she's voiced our concern. So yeah, I may visit with her over the next couple of days and look into that. I had nothing on that I highlighted on page 7. All of that made sense. And then the electricity bill was substantially down on this one than it was a year ago. Again, I go year to year. I don't go month to month because different months are different things. That $4,000, the psychological evaluations, those are on every month. Those are mandatory expenses. You've got another faculty luncheon right there. You got a band one, few subscriptions. Again, I know I go through this a lot more in depth than y'all are used to. I just tried to tell y'all the things that I highlight. You got occupational therapy on that last one, which is another mandatory expense that we have. TIA, that's a tricky one, and Ms. Baumann, you may want to clean me up on that, but on page 12, that TIA designation fee, kind of talk through what that looks like for us.
So right now, we currently have 3 teachers that have a TIA designation. And so they each generate a certain amount of money during the school year. And it has to be paid out by the end of August. So we do a payment when they come back in January, so for that year. And then the other half of it will be when they come back the next semester in August. Because if they don't come back, that money goes back into the pot to be distributed amongst the other teachers that have been designated. We will find out pretty soon, would we say probably beginning of February, how much
Last year was
that's
February
changing.
4th. Yeah.
But, so we just had, it's a payment that comes out in January and August, just kind of to get those going. So what they were.
And to really clarify what she said, TIA is really new for everybody, and at the beginning, people were paying those teachers everything at once. And if that teacher leaves you that semester, then they just took your money and ran. Because they get that money from the district they go to as long as that next district is a TIA district. And so we started splitting that to make sure that we're not paying somebody before they go to another district, which they haven't yet. They're all here. But we did put forth some more teachers this year. This is the last year we are working off of the application that was put forth by people that no longer work here. And, we're in the process of redoing our complete application and modeling it more off of these school districts nearby that have been way more successful with it. We want our success rate to look way more like that success rate. And so we're in the process of completely redoing it. We've not been allowed to because it was a 3-year application. Like I said, this is the last year of that 3 years.
And then that money that we pay out, the state gives to us in the September settle up. So that will come, we'll get reimbursed.
Yeah, so we pay it, but it comes back to us. Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot of money. We hope it's a lot more money if the people that we put forth for the new designation get it. And we hope it's a whole lot more money after we're able to switch the application and make it more gettable than what it is. And when I say that, I don't mean make it easier on them. We just need to open it up. We got a lot of teachers that aren't even eligible for it because the application didn't allow them to be eligible for it. And that's the biggest thing that we've changed, is try to make more teachers eligible to get it. Financial report, questions. And again, if I don't have an answer, I'll write down your question and I'll email it back to you tomorrow. I did. I was pouring through the audit and didn't look through this quite as much as I normally do.
Who's all going to the midwinter conference?
That would be me, Dan, Ballman, Stacy.
On page 4, I know there's got like 3 line items for high school supplies. I don't see North, or I guess North didn't have any, or is there Why are they all separate, like 3 high school? It says custodial supplies.
Page. Could be 2 reasons, Rebecca. Could have been high school, honestly can't answer that. North must have just stocked up.
It's quite a bit. And
That's my guess.
Each light item is quite a bit.
Yeah, and I can visit with Albert about that, but typically they order in mass stock and then they roll with it for about 6 months until they need more, So let me check on that and get back to you
All right.
on that right there.
Yeah, 'cause there's 3 for high school from the same company on the same day.
That's why I was wondering,
I'll do some checking.
Yeah.
Let me.
unless maybe they, in North, I guess, didn't need any.
Well, I think it all, like you said, it all goes through custodial together and then goes to each campus. So
Oh, okay. I
Well,
guess because they're on.
they're south and middle there.
Yeah, it's got the
Well, I
high
didn't
school,
know.
south middle. Let me research that.
Okay.
I'm not going to know that answer tonight, but I'll get it for you and I'll email everybody tomorrow.
Okay.
Maybe high school and North share, since
Maybe.
it's close together.
What's this on page? Let me find it again. I had it highlighted.
Burnett, will you write that note down for me for custodian?
Okay.
What
yeah.
is
Or just give her her.
I will triple check.
2 of them actually?
Oh, what page?
Page, it's 13 in the PDF, but it's page
What are you looking at?
9. It says sports subscription, annual software subscription.
Oh,
Is it Mascot Media?
Rank 1 sport.
Rank 1 is what we use for all paperwork, for your physicals, for your anything that is, and we've had that for years. Anything that a student has to have, it goes through Rank 1.
And then what is Mascot Media subscription?
I'm gonna let Frankie. You know more about that than I do, probably. I mean, I know what it is, but Frankie helped secure it. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Basically, our houses, our website schedules, rosters, live streams of all of our athletic fields. If you go to our website,
So it used to be scattered. We put it all in one place, like our live streams and everything. And that's where it is housed.
Oh, house. Okay.
So now you can just go. There's a link on our website where you can go to Mascot Media, and if it's being live streamed, you can just click right on it. You can click on rosters, click on schedules. It's all in one place.
Okay. That's on the website?
Yes, sir.
Our website.
Yes, sir.
That electric bill, is that just a month?
22,000.
Is that just 1 month?
Yes, sir. It's usually high. It's usually around 25, 26. I was happy with 22, Ron.
No, I mean,
I was.
it said 20, it said school year 24, 25.
No, it's monthly because there's every now and then
That's what I thought.
it'll skip a month and it'll be like 70 something thousand and I'll kind of freak out, but I'll go back and it'll be because it's skipped a month. It's always in there.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
It's off. How are we doing saving? I know we met with that guy.
I mean, I think it's substantially better than it used to be. Y'all don't know this, but every Saturday morning I get up and go to every campus to make sure all the lights are on, and they are. At the high school sometimes because we got games late on a Friday night, I'll have to hit a light switch on or off or something. But I think it's tracking that it's better. I think financially it's better. I mean, is it just a gigantic bang for our buck? I don't know, because we had more LED lighting and everything put in beforehand that some of it I didn't even know we had already done, so there was not many changes they could make. Everything we're doing is going to be humans, and that's what I've tried to stay on top of. Right. I do think it's substantially better. I think people are conscientious about turning the lights on. I don't know that they used to be.
We have donations.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yes, ma'am, we do have two. Sorry, I got looking at this. Bayswater Exploration and Production. I believe that was a donation to Frankie's people in the 1500s. And then the First United Bank one, I won't lie, I don't know why it hit now. If you'll remember, go all the way back to 2 years in a row at the Littlefield game, the First United Bank has given Littlefield ISD $1,000 and Lamesa ISD, because I've had to get the big check at the 50-yard line at both of those games. And it's just they call it a spirit donation. It's just First United Bank giving something to the general fund of both Lamesa ISD and Littlefield ISD. We have no budget amendments, and we have no purchases over $50,000. And again, I'm going to talk, it's going to be a lengthy board meeting, I apologize, but towards the end of my actual superintendent report, I want to talk about where I feel we are financially a little bit, but I don't want to jump the gun, so I'm going to pause on that right there.
Anything else?
I mean, it looks like where we're at, what are you, 4 months in? September, October, November, December. So that's about 33%. Looks like all those numbers are in line.
Most of them, yes,
Looks
sir.
like we're on budget.
Yes, sir. Most of them. And I do, and if I say this again later, I apologize. There's things we're doing this year that we haven't done in the past. And to me, one of the biggest ones is just within the program, not allowing people to use budget when it's not there. It used to almost be ask for forgiveness, right? That's not how it was when I was first here. You don't remember that. Back in the day, it was ask for permission. And because of the free-flowing money of ESSER, it became ask for forgiveness and not have to ask for permission. And we've really tried to change our procedures where we're back to asking for permission. That way we have a much better idea of what people are doing, when they're doing it, and it won't let them use it if it's not there. And they'll call us and run it by us, and there's times where if they can justify it's best for kids and we can find it, we're going to figure it out. But we at least put that parameter in where they just can't freely do it. But agreed, Mr. Telchik, I think that we're tracking.
To me, it looks like it's in line.
Agreed.
Make a motion to approve as presented.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. We'll go to administrative reports.
Okay. Again, this is going to be lengthy, and I apologize, but I'll be as quick as I can. I'm going to say everything I have prior to our principal's presentations. Fair enough? That way, I get done with mine, and then you can have your way with these guys. Enrollment and attendance were actually up 5 from last month. We were at 1473. We're up to 1478. We all feel like all of our percentages are a little low. Against what we were talking yesterday, you want yours up to be about 94. Is that what you were telling me? And when he does his, he's going to talk about some of the things the high school's doing. I know Casey Gass said we don't have control over attendance. Honestly, of everything she said, it's the one thing we have the most control over. And so he is going to talk about some of the things he's doing at the high school this year to help try to get our attendance rate up. But that doesn't mean the others are not. He's just going to talk about it a little bit. I do think attendance is more of a focus than it has been. I'm going to compliment Baker and the high school. They just ran their attendance committees, and I think it had teeth for a change. Agreed? I mean, there were a lot of parents that were upset about it, but the kids got to come to school. I mean, and so I think there's a lot of trending the right direction. We just still have a ways to go. You'll see LSA's not up there because they've all graduated. LSA's fluid though. There could be a kid get in to LSA at any point. But as of right now, they have all graduated. Superintendent goals, I don't have to talk about. I attach those in every board meeting, and y'all can look through them. But it just kind of tracks the 5 goals, and I've just been running a list of things that we do here in the district towards those goals. Okay, so safety compliance update, open gate update. And Dan, I may ask to chime in, but this one's an important one. You do have an attachment in your board book for the first part. Safety committee we had yesterday. Ms. Gonzalez has already heard this. And Mr. Gensler may chime in as well. Y'all have heard me talk about our TEA intruder audits where they come to a campus They try to get in 3 outside doors. If they cannot get in those doors, then they go in and go through the check-in procedures. And then if they do that, at that point they let the administrator know they're there. And then they take a tour of the campus. I'm sure Shelley has had to do it as well. We've been doing it for 3 years. And for the first time, they did not get in one of the 3 doors. They checked in, but as they were touring around with Mr. Gensler, they got to door 8, which leads to a book room, and it had not latched all the way. All right, so that door did open. So we have done a lot of compliance. I think that was late November or early December. I don't know, Gensler. But since then, we've had a staff meeting to make sure everybody knows you have to pull those doors shut. Dan has worked up a compliance plan, which is what's attached, if you would like to look at it in your board book. What else have we done?
Well, we also, like I said, we did that live training that Mr. Gensler did. We addressed it at our safety and security meeting as far as the plan of action for the high school. And then we're going to have to take all that information and upload it onto Sentinel, which is a part of what we need to do in order to rectify that plan of action. And that's going to be due tomorrow. So after this board meeting, one of the other things I have to upload is the minutes from this meeting as far as that we discussed it, the findings and what we are doing to correct that action. That's part of the process of what we'll be uploading to Sentinel tomorrow as well, along with that plan of action.
So the plus to it, and they told me when they came, and I'm Rebecca's tired of hearing me say this. They told me when we came, you're one of the few schools that made it 3 years without us getting in the door. But that's great. But we were all very upset that they were able to, even though the door leads to a book room, that leads to another door, that leads to a hallway, that leads to kids, it still leads to kids. And so we're doing everything we can, and I think we've got it remedied. I think all of our staff understand, pull those doors shut. And some of the doors just didn't shut very hard, and that's another thing we've gone is to the doors to make sure when they shut, they're shutting, because that's half the problem is sometimes Jasper's got 2 doors that if it's hot outside, they don't. If it's cold outside, they do. And we're just trying to make sure all of our doors shut. That way we don't get caught.
And that's one thing Albert's done a really good job. Anytime he's had that, he's always got his guys out there adjusting the door as far as how much pressure it puts towards latching it. So he typically gets right on it pretty quick.
And it wasn't propped open. It just literally
did
latch. So we've got that remedied. On the same note, we have rolled out open gate weapons detection on all. I try not to say the word metal detectors, even though that's what everybody's asking, like how are the metal detectors? I don't really feel like they're metal detectors. And when they trained us, they said these are to catch mass casualty. We're trying to find people walking in with guns. Let's be point blank honest. All campuses have run them off now, and the first day on all campuses was the worst day because it's hard. It's 32 inches to 34 inches to 36 inches. It's how the sensitivity is. What do they have in their backpacks? And by day 2, you kind of got a rhythm. Day 1 at the high school it was not chaotic. It was long. Day 2, they had sped it up substantially. It was the same case on every single campus. And I think everybody kind of has a system now. I have complimented them and our students in our community because everybody's been very understanding about it, and I've appreciated that. We search kids, but we do it very transparently. Nobody's going in behind closed doors. It's right there, out on the table. If kids offer it up, like if I go through and I buzz, but a kid says, I forgot. All those girls that had eyelash deals, right? Well, if they pull it out, we'll just send them right back through, and then if it doesn't go off, Jasmine's been great. She's like, you cannot bring this. I'm going to keep it in my office. Come get it today. And the kid's like, yes, ma'am. And it's been that, like, Christy was just collecting glasses cases right and left. That's what was setting hers off, and so I think everybody's kind of got their routines and their rhythms. We are, and I want to use them for the big basketball games. Rebecca had a good point. We need to definitely know what we're doing before we roll them out to Brownfield, because there's going to be a whole lot of people coming in our gym. But as I told Rocha, I'm also of the opinion, even if they ain't working, if you got to walk through them, it's going to tell you I better leave my stuff in my car. I just think that alone. So I would say it's been an all positive thing. Would y'all agree or disagree? Parents have been fine because we use them at the entrances for the kids, and then once the kids are in, we move them to the offices. And parents have walked through them. I think a couple pocket knives have gone off, but you know, we haven't found anything we shouldn't have found. And the peripheral benefit is things like vapes, right? They're not meant to catch vapes, and they told us that's not why they're here. But they also told us kids are going to think that's why they're here, and they're going to stop bringing them. And I do think, because they know if it goes off, that all my backpack's getting searched. And if you got something in there, you're going to get caught. So I do think just the thought of it has kind of helped some of the things that, peripheral benefits, that's the best way I can say that. So over the security stuff, before I move on to the next thing, because they're all separate, do y'all have any questions over either the TEA, intruder audit, or Open Gate?
Tell Mary Elizabeth not to put that they don't catch me.
Yeah, don't put that.
Don't put that.
They catch things.
We want them to think
Yeah.
Quick question.
Yes, sir.
So if you take that, you don't say metal detector, but
Yes.
if you put that out there at the basketball games, you know, you're saying you're pinpointing guns.
Yes.
So if you have a person that's got a concealed carry license,
That's a big question that we got to figure out, because it's still,
Can't carry it on.
you can't carry it on school grounds.
Not if you're not allowed.
Right.
wait, but do we have signs posted there?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes,
okay.
sir.
I
We do.
where
And
they?
so that would be a deal, Ernest, where, and that's kind of how we've been. We would be very polite and just let them know, sir, you can't carry that in there. Go back to the car. You know, because I was thinking, you know, we're going to get it down and it's just going to go really well. But that's going to be our people. The Brownfield people aren't going to be used to it, or the Denver City people.
Yeah.
So, and I thought, man, we'll know. Our parents will kind of know, but they won't. And so we're going to sit and meet before we do it and make sure we've got it really organized before we try to roll that out. You know, but I do think the first time we do it, it's going to struggle, just like it did at schools, and we'll get better at it.
And I think another suggestion, and when we do roll them out the games, we may write up something as far as our policy and send it over to their superintendent so they can kind of spread the
Beforehand,
word.
just like we do with online
So they have
ticketing.
a
You know, we
heads
send
up.
something over and say, hey, just so you know, we're going through an Open Gate weapons detector. Here's things you can't bring in, you know, our building. It's a good idea. It's a good question, Mr. O'Hare. Moving on to the next one, and Rebecca, you're going to have to help them all jar their memories, because I was very impressed. Rebecca remembered this on Monday. And you have an attachment for this as well in your board book. This predates me. But at one point in time, there was a lawsuit between Education Service Center 17 and Conterra Broadband and polls. When Rebecca heard the word polls, she was like, I remember that. Because you visited with Mr. Backus back a few years ago. Okay, so what happened was a few years ago, the Service Center contracted this company to bring broadband to all of the schools within the Service Center. All right, all of the schools. That involved putting a pole up in the towns of Lamesa and all the other schools in the Education Service Center. Well, at some point in time, the contract was breached, and they got into a multiple years argument about whose pole is it. Is it Service Center pole to take down, or is it Conterra's pole to take down? And so they've been arguing back and forth, and they have finally come to an agreement that the Service Center and the company are going to split it 50-50, and they're going to get the poles down. But for that to happen, all of the schools in the Service Center have to approve that we support the Service Center in representing all of us to help get the poles down. Anything you want to add to that? Because Ernest would have been here, probably.
I just got
I was
out.
here.
So you remember too? I was shocked. Rebecca said, I remember the poles.
Yeah.
I was like, that's
So
awesome.
the only people that won were their turns.
Yeah,
Basically.
Yes.
basically.
So if y'all are good, and that, I don't know that I can answer a question if you asked it. I
Is
just
it the
don't.
one at the
There
high
really
school?
hasn't been much
It's one at the
about
high
it.
school.
It's just
We just
Just
got
a poll.
on.
what you told us, what they told us.
Just a poll.
I remember that
Yeah.
Because we were trying to come up with other things we could use for it, and then,
Yes, it is just.
yeah.
So it's going to
It's at the
disappear
high school.
at the expense of splitting between two people that aren't us.
I don't know how they would do that, because of course, they'd have to come in and we have gate, I mean, they want.
They'll work with us. It's with the
As long as they don't damage anything.
Well, that one was fast. I was afraid y'all were going to ask me a lot of questions over polls that I couldn't answer. I'm going to go through the legislative update pretty quick because I really felt like Casey said exactly what I've been saying and what I believe. I think it's going to feel different this time. They elected a speaker, so the legislative session started on Tuesday. They elected the speaker the first day. And that's who they elected, Dustin Burrows of Lubbock, Texas. And he's a Republican, and he supports vouchers in a big way. So that's the bad. But the good is he is from Lubbock, and he also knows all of the rural West Texas communities are struggling, so I think he's also going to support public education. I think he's going to, exactly what Casey said, he's going to support vouchers getting passed, but I think he's also going to support public education getting the funding. They've had no discussions yet. They've been doing a whole lot of other stuff this week. But those are the three categories of funding that they're going to hit. The basic allotment, which is, we talk a lot about attendance. That's how much you get in a school district for every single kid. Special education is going to be talked about because it's in the $1 billion of underfunding. And then safety and security is going to be talked about because they've given us all these mandates over the last 2 years, but they've not funded them. And so those are the three places. Teacher raises is going to be addressed, but I didn't put it up there, and I didn't put it up there for one reason. What we're hoping they do, instead of saying, here's a pot of money for teacher raises, we're hoping they say, here is a pot of money to the basic allotment. You have to spend X amount of this on teacher raises. Because if they'll do that, then that leaves the rest of that pot of money up to the districts to decide how it is spent. But if they just give it to you for teacher raises, then you can only spend it on teacher raises. Now the question I'll have is, it's what Casey said. They're going to help. I believe they're going to help us out. But legislative stuff lasts for 2 years. My question will be, okay, so let's say they throw some money at us. And they put teacher raises in the headline and vouchers in the headline. What's it look like in 2 years? Does the money continue? Or do you give us money for 2 years and in 2 years that money goes away? So I do think I'm not going to say the Calvary's coming, but I feel way better about it than I did the last night. And then the other thing they're going to talk about is accountability. And I don't know if y'all read it. I confused Rebecca earlier today because she said, are you aware of the problem in Fort Worth? And I have a lot of problems in Fort Worth. And I had to figure out which problem in Fort Worth you were talking about. But one of the things that came out today was STAR testing. Dallas ISD proved to TA that how many percent? 48%? 48% of their STAR tests have been graded wrong by TEA. And I think that there is a strong force of people starting to realize that STAR test might not be as fair of an accountability system as what everybody thought it was. And so I think that's going to be addressed. I think they will look at it and decide, do they want to continue with the STAR? Do we want to move to another sort? There will always be a test, but they might move away from the STAR test. And it will depend on, if they pass vouchers, do they make private schools take this STAR test? And if they don't, are we going to allow public schools to take whatever test we give to private schools? So accountability is going to be something else the legislative session really talks about. Questions. And I'll update y'all as it goes. I'll watch it really closely. Anybody? Okay, we already talked about the lawsuit, so we're good on that. January 23rd is our CTE community tour, and if y'all would just, Melissa, if you would just take one and pass them down. Those are the flyers. You have one in your folder. I would love for them to be in the paper, even if you have to pay for an ad. We've got flyer on both sides. I believe Frankie made one side, and I believe Ms. Telchik made the other side. Is that accurate?
Yes, I did.
What's
Or
that?
you said
We
mail-
got it in the mail.
Great, great. We're trying to get it out there to as many people as we can. But that's January 23rd. And Mr. Gensler, do you want to talk about that at all?
The CTE tour, it doesn't really have an end time to it. We're going to start it at 6, and then we're just basically going to take a tour around. We did like a CTAT tour not too long ago, so it's going to look a lot like that. As far as we're going to go around, we're going to have the kids demonstrating what they're doing in law enforcement, what they're doing in culinary, what they're doing in wealth
With the kids.
construction, with the kids.
With the kids.
With the kids.
Not just adults talking. We want the
The
kids
kids
showing
are
on
going to
what they do.
demonstrate every portion of our CTE wing, and we did a lot to get that thing pretty pristine. When we did that CTAT tour, it still looks good, and so I think it's going to be a good thing to get. Hopefully, we get a bunch of kids wanting to come out.
Yeah, we want to show off our kids, but it's still fairly new. And yeah, a lot of people have seen it, but I think there's a lot of people in our community that have never really got to go in those rooms and see what we're offering. So we got snacks, I believe, and hopefully between the food and it being our kids, we'll get some people that want to come check it out. Y'all are welcome to be there. You don't have to do anything except smile and be a part of it.
Can that be televised or something? So where?
I guess we could record it. I hadn't thought about that. Yeah, it's a good idea. And then kind of put it out on our website and everything.
It's two good ideas. Today.
Write that down. Fire tonight, Ernest.
My brain will blow up.
All right, the next thing I have, Ms. Gonzalez has a folder. She's going to pass off to you. You don't have this, Elizabeth, just because it's confidential. But you can still get, I do have information for you, just not the actual handout. So what y'all are going to see is the report that we got from Gaggle, because we had a lot of questions as to what that was going to look like. And I just copied and pasted it, but that's kind of what it looks like. And it's very anonymous, but it does kind of inform us of issues that our kids and our staff are struggling with, which that's the goal. To take 2 or 3 months of this and then, start seeing, all right, if we got a problem that we didn't know about, let's get somebody in here to talk to our kids about this said problem. But it tells you how many people called about the different things. Now, if there was an emergency, which, I think, 3 to 4, I think between all campuses, we've had maybe 3 to 4. We get an email immediately. Me, Dan, Frankie, and then the principal and the counselor of the campus the kid is at. And it literally says, we just talked to so-and-so. This is what they're struggling with. We think you need to go visit with them right now. Or, we just talked to so-and-so. They're struggling. We don't think you know to go visit with them, but it's important enough that we need to notify you to kind of watch it. So we've been very impressed with it, and I really liked that report, and I just kind of wanted y'all to see what it looks like. Questions on that? I'm almost done, guys. January 30th, evaluation, 6 o'clock p.m. Again, if y'all want something special to eat, tell me. We'll get it taken care of, and I will. Next board meeting after that is Thursday, February 20th. I think that's right. That sounds really late, but I do think that's right. 2 last things that I want to talk about. Let me go to actually 3. And Gary, I'm going to make you be brief because they still have presentations to listen to. But Gary has, and again, Melissa, I'm going to pick on you. If you'll take one and just pass it over. He's been giving this to us for a while. Oh, they already have one. Well, they can have 2. But Gary, would you like to talk about it all? Just kind of what it is? And I'm going to give you like 25 seconds.
Yeah,
this is something I do each and every month. I always give it to Ron. And it's just showing you what we do for Aramark does for y'all. And this is showing our sales for the month of December, our food cost, and all of that good stuff. And then these are just some of the pictures that we take of the different things that we do each and every month. And I'll do it. I'll give you one each and every month and just lay on your desk. That way you can see what we're doing as Aramark.
I liked it. I thought it was
taking care of Lamesa. We've been here almost 42 years, and I don't want to leave.
We don't want you to leave. Thank
Yeah.
you for everything you do.
Thank
I didn't realize it'd been 42 years till they told me
Are the
earlier.
are the meals down because of enrollment? Or
Enrollment's
down
down,
because
yeah.
people just are.
Yeah, just enrollment, yeah.
Okay.
And a lot of kids are bringing their lunches, especially at
North is a big
North.
one.
North is a lot, bringing
And
a lot for lunch.
high schools are down because most of the kids, there's a lot of kids that leave during that lunchtime anyway.
Yeah, they get dismissed at noon, and so they don't come to lunch. Last year we were doing like 350 lunches for high school. Now we're doing barely 300 lunches. So that's kind of the issue. So we're working on trying
So
to get it back down.
we'll start including that in y'all's thing, so y'all can kind of look at it. Thank you,
Thank you,
Karen.
sir.
Backing up, Ronna asked about this, and I just have not had a clear update, but I do as of today. And so I wanted to share it with you. We're kind of at the mercy of the world when it comes to getting things in. And when we decided to name the facilities, the first plan I had was to put lettering, like actual, not a plaque, but lettering across. Okay, well, I'm not saying we can't do that down the road, but when the budget got tight, when I'm not even going to tell you how expensive it was going to be, because it was way, 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 way more than what I expected. And so about halfway through having them come out and measure and all that, I just decided that's not being a very good steward of it. So I switched gears about halfway through it and decided for now we'll do a plaque. And so the plaque is going to look very similar to what we made for our CTE, like this. I used the exact same company. And we've been waiting on that now. And I got word today that they are expected to be in our hands by January 29th. Okay? So I'm not going to put dates on the calendar until they're in my hands, because you just that's someone telling me until I see them. But once they do, we're going to get dates on the calendar to go ahead and dedicate the facilities. And I am going to start with Kurt Pierce, because I visited with Christy over the holidays, and she is moving. She has bought a house, maybe in Belton, on a lake somewhere. And I talked to her whole family, and I'd like to get that one done before she moves. And so we'll get that one on the calendar, and then we'll figure out after that, we'll look at the best time to do the other two.
I will say something.
Yes, ma'am.
Are we do the volleyball courts? Are we doing one for? I just wanted to mention Patty's very ill, and I'm hoping that
We can, if we'll do Pierce, we can jump right on that one.
just because I really would hate that.
I agree.
You know, I just
Lisa was told they were calling in hospice.
yeah, they did.
Well, if I get them on the 29th and I hear that, we'll do it on the 30th. Because I see them a lot, and I have noticed a difference in
she's
her
gone
health.
down really.
I'm glad you said that, Rebecca. But as soon as they're in my hand, we'll figure out how to do both of those pretty quickly. Because I
And I
agree
guess
with
we
you.
would have to ask them once they do come, depending.
I'll talk to them. I see them a
Yeah.
lot. I have a good relationship with the Browns. We'll figure that out. And we'll start with the plaques, and then once they're there, if we come into buckets of money and we decide someday to do it differently, we can. But I think this
And the
will be a
most
good
important
start.
just to get them.
And they look good.
Yeah.
Like the plaques look good. They're nice.
Yes.
So I'm excited about it. Questions about that? So if I get them on the 29th, I'm going to immediately start getting dates, and we'll get them in the paper. Mary Elizabeth. The last thing from me, and then we're going to get to academic presentations that I'm excited about. And I understand this has been a long meeting, but I told y'all in December if we're going to have a short meeting, December's the time to do it, because in January they get long. You don't have this. You get to pass one more thing. First off, I'm going to apologize because I'm not a blamer. And anytime things don't go the way that we want them to go, I'm always going to be in front of y'all taking the blame. And we still have a mess with our facilities. We feel. Now, I'm going to say this too, and I've told anybody to listen. One of the reasons we have a mess with the facilities is because I've decided to continue to fight the mess on the facilities instead of just bending over and just giving everybody keys like it's been done in the past. And we're going to keep on fighting. This last weekend, we could blame a lot of people, but again, we're going to blame me for miscommunication. But as of this very second, right now today, where we stand with it is Frankie's cut off all badge access to the new gymnasium, period. And everybody is playing in alternate gyms. Accurate? And so that's where we stand today, to even avoid miscommunication. Now, what you have before you, because if you'll remember, we had a meeting about a year ago. You were there, Ms. Gonzalez, a little over a year ago. But even after that meeting, because we didn't follow it up with this, with take this with you and put this in the paper, no, you don't get it yet. There was still too many people that said, well, I heard they said this, and I heard they said that. And we are trying to get to a point right now where we feel like football, volleyball, basketball are all treated away, the right way. And then we're having a meeting and we're going to institute these. And if you look on the back, you'll see what I think are very fair prices that cover us. Because again, and this is where I always try to keep my head, because it's easy for me to get mad at people because, and I tell y'all all the time, adults are what make this job hard. But then I always take a step back and I try to make sure, okay, I can be mad at some adults. I'm not going to screw our kids. And so that's where I always go back to. Let's take care of our kids. And if you look down at the bottom, I feel like we did this, and Frankie did a good job with it. With the practice rate, if you have no Lamesa kids, it's a certain amount. If you have 1 to 49% kids, it's a certain amount. But if you got 50% or over of Lamesa kids, then we're taking care of them. And again, this is not UIL stuff. This is not a school that calls and says, hey, we want to meet. So two schools that want to meet in our gymnasium and play. This is not that. This is all of the league stuff. Now, having done this week, I don't want to make a bad decision because I want to, and this is something I need clarity on because I wasn't here when we were doing the new gyms, and y'all were in all those conversations. The only question I have, because the new gym, the nice new gym is not going to be touched, but the one question that I have had is that when we built this thing, that auxiliary gym, that we talked, and that's why I'm asking about the kids on the lower goals being able to play there because of the goals moved. Is that accurate or no? Do y'all remember those conversations or no? And I say that because of this. We could say first and second grade can play in that gym where the goals move and nobody else can. What are y'all's thoughts about that? I'm not talking about the main one. I'm talking about the auxiliary gym at the new place. Because there were goals put in there because they move up and down. And I don't want to mess up with the community and say no when that's something that we had talked about. Do y'all remember, Ms. Gonzalez? Do you remember?
Yeah. I don't remember. I mean, not about that, no. I mean, it might have been said, but it never was brought to the board, said this is what we're doing. For
well, that's what I'm saying. We can do what we need to do right now.
A long time ago was asked, what did we think, and we just said it was fine, but now...
So I guess my question is, we've got all badge access cut off to that new place, period. Do we want to allow the kids with the first and second graders to play in the littler one because the goals move, or do we want to keep it as such? I'm game with whatever. I just don't. I want to do the right thing.
Is there on the other gyms? Are those goals? Can they move? Like
the only one that they don't move. Now there are. I think at Follis there are ways to put a goal on a goal. If that makes sense. Right? Say that again.
Yeah, that's what we've always done for years.
Is put a goal on a goal that makes it lower. Yeah. I think that's what you do at Fox. Yeah. Accurate? Okay.
Or even in the old gym. The old basketball,
the old back gym. That I've received this week, about two, was the safety concern of putting the, I guess they don't hang the backboard anymore. They do a rim inside of a rim that drops down.
Well, it's very
because it's broke and it's fell. Want kids to play it, and so that's why they're asking, I guess, to just use that back one because when Coach Moreland designed that or did that back one, he put goals in specifically for that could be lowered and upper without having to put attachments and taking that risk out of there.
I mean, there was 8 goals purchased. Do we not have all 8 goals anymore?
Now they're rims that they're having a well well back together when they break out.
How long ago was
Well,
that?
see, you know,
Cindy?
before,
It's been a while,
10
yeah,
years.
because we purchased
Yeah, we
them.
purchased
We purchased them.
and the ones that y'all did when y'all purchased weren't the ones that you just hang over, not
But
with
we
the
still
rims.
reinforced them though. I mean,
You still have to
did.
strap them
Yeah,
and
you still had
brace
to
them
strap
because
them
they
in.
rattle. But
Because we didn't want that to fall, you know. But if it, I haven't seen the new one, so I don't know if it's just like what y'all are saying. So if that's the case, I mean, the safety with the
Yeah,
kids
would
using
be
that,
more.
I
Well,
wouldn't mind
and here's
using
what
that.
I'm saying, because I feel like we're, again, y'all heard me say it, I think we're in a better place than we've been, and I think this is a good plan with those prices. What I'm saying is we keep it totally closed off, and we tell them we will allow first and second grade to play in them. Everyone else is playing in other gyms. You're playing in Follis, you're playing in the Cracker Box, the only people. Except, and we did talk about end-of-year tournaments and championships you can have in the big one. We're saving that for special occasions. So they wouldn't go in that big one, but we could say first and second grade can play on the adjustable goals, but everybody above that, if you're on a 10-foot goal, you were playing in one of the other gyms.
now let me ask
What
you
was
this.
your suggestion?
So like a league with Lamesa kids, ISD kids or whatever, say a little dribblers that's playing here, and they practice 2 nights a week, play. Do they only play on Saturdays, or do they play
I don't
on the
do their
It's
weekends?
just
schedules, and I don't want to do their
Okay,
schedules.
they
It's
only
just Saturdays.
It's a
So
full day.
It's
I
a
know
full
we
day.
charge.
Other than
for-
when the tournament, it may start like on a Thursday and Friday. I think last year they did it two days maybe.
So we
Saturday,
charge.
Sundays.
Do we charge for that Saturday on a league? Or do
No,
we,
so here's,
we just charge
again,
for tournaments when people bring teams in?
we're
It's different. This is different
That's
from
what I'm
the
asking.
league.
right. So where we are today, no, because we're trying to get through basketball, making sure basically they were treated
Right.
the same way as volleyball. No, that's all I'm saying. Where we are going once we're good with this is yes. If custodians are involved to clean up, they will pay for custodians, SROs. They will pay the fee to help take care of that.
So that means they would
Now,
have to.
outside schools are here, like
Yeah,
Right.
that's
then
different.
they pay.
Yeah, they
the
pay
full
for
price.
it. Yeah.
But if it's helping develop Lamesa ISD students in a program, they still have to do. They still have to go
Practices
on.
they don't play.
They
and
still have
then-
to go on the sports key and.
100%. Yes. And we've totally taken the Kirk Pierce Athletic Facility off of that.
Yeah.
And that's why even if we allowed first and second graders to play, we would not put it back on there. It would just be under
Just that.
the requirement that the only ones playing are first and second grades. As soon as that goal has to go up to 10 foot, y'all playing another gym. And I've already talked to the parents about that and told them that that's the only thing that we might agree to is allow first and second graders to play. Does that kind of help?
How do we limit them from entering other parts of the facility?
The badge
They
will
still gotta
only
have a
work
bathroom.
on that gym.
You still got to have a bathroom, right?
Well, they still have the bathrooms.
But you can lock the doors to the big
Yes, sir.
during the times.
I don't see a problem for them.
I mean,
I
say
think we
by
could
that-
allow them at least to create the problem, right? Like, let's say we're going to give y'all this bone and see how y'all go.
I don't have a problem with it.
Okay.
And I know I
If
see,
it takes that possibility of that rim.
and they would have to have an SRO
Yes,
officer at every
Yes, ma'am.
campus that they're playing on.
Yes, ma'am. That was something
That
that
would
we
be
argued
eliminated.
last year because we had a league
lot
tell
of-
us, well, we don't ever need SRO, and they had to fight that.
Yeah.
I think it's very important that people have to understand that yes, we're letting the community use any of our facilities, their taxpayer dollars. But we got all these beautiful facilities through a bond, and we got to take care of that.
And that's what I've been trying to
What
voice.
is going to happen when we got to replace the court? We got to replace the turf. Who is going to pay for that? Now, the small gyms, I mean, I don't see a problem with it, but if you go and call any surrounding schools here and they say, hey, Brownfield, do you let anybody
They
use
don't.
those gyms? It's a big no.
No.
There's no questions asked. So I think it's not that we don't care or we're being ugly. It's just that a lot of things that we're trying to put into place and just get to where we're taking care of our facilities and our taxpayer dollars.
It's decades of change behavior
Right.
that we're fighting.
And what if moving forward, we do let them use it this year? And
Yes,
of course, because the equipment they have, I guess, is not safe.
Yes, ma'am.
But still to preserve moving forward, have them look into
Look
getting
into
for
dogs.
the
Got no
the
problem
back
with that.
old
But now
gym
you write
for
that
next
down
year.
for me, too.
So,
Yes,
but
ma'am.
who would be in charge of that, us or them?
Buying
The
gold,
league.
I'd say we
The
just
league.
research it and see. It would not be us. It
Okay.
would be the league.
Well,
Yes.
and I'm good with that too,
Yes,
just
ma'am.
because even though that's what they made it for, it's still going to be used for many, many more times, and we still want to preserve, the facility as much as we can for when we do need them for the Mesa ISD.
I will say I feel good about this because one,
Yeah.
the goals move, and so really the only reason I need that is for that. We're allowed, and this is what I was telling guys, we're not telling you can't play.
Yeah.
We're telling you we're saving it for special
Exactly.
occasions when you play. And I think this balances all of that. So y'all are good. That's what we're going to roll with for I'm not talking to you yet. That's what we're going to roll with for the rest of it. And you won't get that until we have that meeting with the people. But you will get it then, and we'll get it printed.
And I have another question.
Yes, ma'am.
Does that include the concession stand or not for high school?
I would say no.
Okay.
Because if they're only playing that first and
Because that's
second
what they
grade, I
can
think
use.
if they want to sell stuff, they could set something out in the parking lot and sell it out there. Don't you think?
Yeah.
I think so. Just the gym. Gym and bathroom. Because it shouldn't be many. If it's just first and second grade, the majority of the games should be happening at another location. That's the way I'm seeing it.
Well, I didn't go in there
Well,
this
there's a
Saturday,
lot,
but it was
yes.
packed.
I know the older
It
my
was
kids got,
a
the
lot
less-
of cars out there.
Less parents and grandparents and everything came. Yeah, them kindergartens through second,
You
third,
don't have a lot.
it's just like the South.
Well,
But another thing we added to
Have a
that,
Parents' Day.
and if you'll look at that, something else we added, and is that we're trying to put the ownership back on the people renting it and let them know we're going to let you do it at all of our facilities. But man, when you start messing it up, we're not going to let. You don't just get to keep it.
It's also very important to be clear on what you're saying, what you're putting out there, whether it's on our website, on a piece of paper, on the newspaper. You have to be very clear. This is not for our gain. You take a
Yes,
look at
ma'am.
it, we're still.
Yeah,
We're
we're
not
not-
gaining anything from this. I put
Especially with the
it to people like this. Are you telling me that you don't think our custodians or our SROs need to get paid for their time? Oh no, that's not what I'm saying. That's all you're paying for.
It's years
That's
of
really all you're paying
behavior.
for.
But when you put it like that, then they're
Yes,
saying,
ma'am.
oh, well, this is what I thought, well, these are Lemisa ISD kids. How do you not care about them? Well, when you put it like that, and they're not getting what we're saying, yeah. I think we should control the narrative, and we need to
Yes,
put
ma'am.
things out
I
there so
agree.
they understand. Anybody else can put whatever we want, but when you go onto Lemisa ISD website, it's extremely clear.
Yes, ma'am.
The language is clear as to why.
Agreed. And I think that we'll also put it in paper, and I 100% agree. Yes, ma'am. And I think it ties into the last thing, and is going back over that stuff. We're not in the day and age anymore where we can just be out of pocket for things like that. And I think that's another angle that we can play. That you can't really argue with me. It's no different. It's the two arguments together. We want to take care of our people, but we're not in that state anymore where we can just pull money out of nowhere anymore. And I said it last time when we adopted that deficit budget. I think that's the end for a while. I think I said that we need to take care of our people right now because I don't know that we'll be able to like this moving forward. Now, I do think we can take care of our people. It might just look different. I go back to when I first sat here as superintendent and I had that calendar that was different. And I said, I believe teachers value three things, and y'all correct me if I'm wrong. We've got teachers in the room. Everybody values money. Nobody can tell me they don't. We all need money to live. But the other two things teachers value, in my opinion, are time and culture. And those are two things that we can be creative and try to give teachers time, and then we, as a leadership team, can create the absolute best culture that we possibly can to still make this a place to be. But saying that, we're already thinking big picture on ways that we can not ever get rid of people, but there may be some positions when people leave on their own that we don't replace. And I think we're going to have to make sure every time we're talking money for the next year to 2 years until we know how it's going to look, we got to really ask ourselves, do our kids need it? And I think the answer is always going to be yes, right? We can always find that, yes. But we're also going to have to ask ourselves, but is it something they need now? And do we need to do it now? Or is it something that we can do later and really start to prioritize what we do? Because it's about to get tight. But we're okay. We're healthy. She said it. We're healthy. But we got to stay healthy. And to stay healthy, we're going to have to be pretty responsible with what we do moving forward. So that was my spiel on that. Guys, I told y'all it'd be long. Thank y'all. Now, I will switch to what I think is the most important thing, and where we've been trying to spend our time is in all academics. And one of the main things we've tried to do is get the common academic language. And I've told them all 5 to 7 minutes, and I've already seen the presentations. And some of them had to talk pretty fast. But we're going to start with Gensler, and what I would ask is you let him go through it, and then ask him any questions you got. And then when he's done, we'll go to Jasper, let her go through it, ask her any questions you got. And then we'll go to Christy, same, and then Tipton, the same. They're all short. And this is what I told them. This is what y'all should hear. I want the board to hear how you're taking the academic data that you can get right now, whether it's testing, whether it's your group work, whether it's assessment, and how are you using that to make academic and instructional decisions for the spring semester to help our kids be successful down the long run. So that was the blanket that they worked from within, and I think they've all done a good job. So, Gensler, you're up. And I'll put your slideshow on. You can use this one. Baker does not get to talk. She's not bailing you out today. This is all you.
You're going to put it up there? Right?
Yes, sir. I am.
This thing's got a laser pointer, too. That doesn't work on the TV.
All right.
Is it okay if Ms. Baker films this? I need the film for my superintendent.
I forgot.
She won't get any of that. Well, she might get Dan in there in the video.
She get the back of my bald head.
Hopefully they don't hold that against me. But it's just for my superintendent class, which coincidentally this particular class is the superintendent of the school board, so it's perfect timing. But first of all, I just kind of want to say thank you. School board appreciation. And from the high school, from all the staff, we just want to say thank you. We appreciate you. We hope you guys like the gifts that we got you. Mr. Hall with the welding class did a good job on those. The wrapping, I'm sorry, you should see me wrap a Christmas gift. I thought it was a pretty good job. But personally, I want to say thank you. I know I say this every school board meeting, but I'm happy to be here. This is a great place. It's the people that are great. From custodians to maintenance to TAs to teachers, and then most importantly, the front office staff, and most importantly the students. There's great people here, and I feel really blessed to be here. So thank you. The counselor is a little questionable, though, so I'm not sure about her. But anyways, at the high school, these are the two main areas that we're focusing on. All right, student achievement and student attendance, and they obviously kind of go hand in hand. Right? We can't improve student achievement if the students aren't there. So those are the two things that we're focusing on this year. So this kind of graph that I'm showing you, this is our STAR data. This is our 5 tested subjects, which I'm sure you guys already know: Algebra 1, English, English 2, Biology, and U.S. History. And this is last year's data. Okay? So if you look at that where it says D&M, that does not meet. So those are the students that did not meet the standard last year. And then you have approaches, which means they're close, but they didn't meet the standard. And obviously meets is meeting the standard, and then they mastered the standard. Now, like U.S. history, for example, as far as the state's concerned, I know you guys know this, but that's considered passing from approaching meets masters. So if you look at U.S. history, you could say, hey, 90% passed. Heck yeah, that's pretty good. 90% of our kids passed. All right? That's a good thing. But it's not good enough if you look at these numbers. It's not good enough. So if you look at the second to last row where it says LB, that means left behind. So take Algebra 1, for example. 76% did not meet or approaches. That means they're not on level. So what you're telling me is 3 out of 4 kids that came out of that class are not on grade level? 3 out of 4. And then English 1. 1 out of every 2 kids that come in are not on grade level. And that's not good enough. It's just not. It's not good enough. Our goal is to get as many kids as humanly possible to on level. Look at our on level numbers at the very bottom. 24%, 46%. So you can say last year that our kids, less than 1 out of every 2, are not on grade level. And that's not a good thing. And we want to get as many kids as possible.
And I'm not interrupting you, but I think the biggest point that I need to make sure registers, because this is what we've been preaching to our district, is approaches passes the STAR. But approaches does not mean they're on grade level. and we are really trying to flip our minds, approaches ain't good enough. Yeah, it may pass, but they're not grade level. And that, I want that to hit home with you guys. Sorry.
No, you're good. So, the point is, we need to get all those kids, look at those approaches numbers, 54%, 49%, 45%. We want all those kids to be meets. That's the goal. So, how are we going to do it? It's kind of a 3 ways that we're trying to improve our student achievement. Number 1, we want to increase the rigor of instruction. The instruction that is happening right now in real time, we need to increase the rigor. We can't soft toss instruction. Okay, we can't just, I told our staff, I tell them every week when I send the email, we want our kids leaving that classroom feeling like they got a dang brain workout. All right, we want to exhaust them mentally with our rigor of instruction. We do not want to soft toss it. We want effective teacher planning. Okay, we want teachers to be able to internalize the planning. We want our teachers to really think about their planning. We're not just turning in plans just for the sake of turning in plans, right? We need to give it some thought because your problems are solved in planning. And then lastly, with our RTI, it's the tea time. The tea time. Now I'm going to talk about that here in a second. We're going to use that tea time, especially here this second semester, going towards STAR, to hopefully kind of push that needle as far as getting those kids from approaches to meets. So, for example, I started this back in October as far as increasing the level of questions. I'm going to kind of explain this slide to you. So, and one way to increase the rigor of instructions, we have to increase the level of questioning that we're giving our students. The STAR test works at a level 2 and 3. So these levels are, a level 1 question is the simplest question. Like you could go into the text and just find the answer, write it down. What year did Columbus sail the ocean blue? Oh, 1492. Easy. That's level 1. And then level 2, you got to look for it. The answer might be in multiple places. You have to search for it. It's a little bit more difficult. You have to analyze. You have to explain. And then level 3, you're going to have to create something. You're going to have to speculate. You have to predict. It's the highest level. And the STAR test works at a 2 and 3 level. The questions are 2 and 3 levels, so we have to work at a 2 and 3 level. We have to give our kids instruction at a 2 and 3 level. We can't live on level 1. Level 1 is soft toss. Right? We're trying to pitch 95 mile an hour. So we got to do it at levels 2 and 3. Does that make sense? So in our PD that we just had coming back from Christmas break, and I started it in the fall as an emailing out to teachers, having them provide me with levels. I gave them this graph that you showed that they have to post in their classrooms and give me back feedback. Hey, give me a level 1, 2, and 3 questions for your content areas. And then when we came back on January 6th, I had them all get in groups. As a group, they had to come up with 2 questions for each level. Individually, they had to come up with 2 questions for each level for their upcoming unit. And then we just stressed the importance of these level 2 and 3 questions and how 50% of every single unit test has got to consist of level 2 and 3 questions. And then the other part of our training was improving teacher planning. So I gave them 13 questions. This is the questions right here. Same groups. We picked out 5 of the questions, and we're just focusing on how are we doing this? What's our reteach, retest? What is the standard? How rigorous is the standard? What standards do we need to focus on? Are we planning with the end in mind? So every teacher should have their unit test before they teach the lesson. The unit test should be ready to go. And then that unit test should have level 2 and 3 questions in it already. And then they should plan their level unit 2 and 3 questions and have them in their plans. You should script those out before you ever teach a lesson. Does that make sense? So we spend a lot of time, same thing, got them in groups. We answered the questions as groups. We answered the questions as individuals. And then they had to provide a unit test for their upcoming unit that they're working on right now with the unit tests that have the level 2 and 3 questions in them. So when we go back, when we talk about tea time, so the tea time, it's not that the tea time has been bad. We've been doing good things on tea time already in the fall semester. We've separated each day by grade level, obviously, or by content, English Monday, Biology Tuesday, History Thursday, etc., etc. And then obviously we don't have tea time on Wednesdays because it's a late start day. But there's got to be a better way to utilize the tea time. So going forward, and we're not starting this week, this upcoming week, that the next week, we're going to start using this tea time to kind of push that needle.
Okay? We're going to start pulling out kids from, we're going to pair Algebra 1 and History, and we're going to pair English and Biology together. And we're going to try to identify, we want to identify these kids. Let me go back to this first graph. These kids right here that live on that second row, those approaches, we want to identify those kids that are 2 or 3 or 4 questions away from being meets. Because we want to get all those kids from approaches to meets. We're going to identify those kids that are approaches. We're going to pull them out during tea time. We're going to rotate every week between Algebra and History and Biology and English. And we're going to try to use that time to get all of those kids from approaches to meets. And that's going to be the difference in the test scores. That's what we're excited about. That's going to be the difference between getting that on level, that bottom row, where it's at 24, 46, 40%. We want that number to be huge this upcoming year. Next thing is improving attendance. So last year we were at 91.1%. As we sit right now, we're at 92.7%. The goal is 95%. We can't improve student achievement unless the kids are there. And we are trying to get the kids there. These are some of the things that we're doing. What we're doing. So I had a faculty meeting back in October. Teacher contacts. Okay, and I asked the teachers, and I told them, why is attendance important? Obviously, attendance is tied to achievement, right? Obviously, it's money. Every kid that walks in there is $6,300. I'm not sure.
$6,160.
$6,160. So there you go. So we have, and then the studies have proven that the number one way to get kids to school, teacher contacts. Teacher contacts. So we have a Google form. If a kid's not there, we want teachers to contact those parents every time that kid's not there. And of course, obviously, we want to create an environment where they want to be there. We want to greet them outside the school. We want to greet them at every single classroom. We want every classroom to be inviting. We want every teacher to ask, hey, why didn't you make it? We missed you. We missed you yesterday. We want you to be here. We need you to be here to be able to learn. So obviously, we want to create that welcoming environment. We want teachers to contact. We have attendance meetings. We have attendance meetings every week. We're just doing the attendance committees. Obviously, we provide them resources. How can we get you to school? Is there transportation that you need? We file on kids in truancy court. Now, that's a punitive measure, but some of the positive things we're doing, we've done 6 weeks perfect attendance pizza parties. We've done gift cards. We've done Bahama Bucks, drink snacks. For juniors and seniors, I have pictures of them. We even gave them a reserved parking spot. And we rotate every 3 weeks. Say, hey, you've been perfect attendance this 3 weeks. We're going to draw your name out, and then we give them a preferred parking spot. Right, their parking spot's better than my spot. So some of the things that we're doing. Now, when I say that, the best thing I think that about this, you have those group of kids. They're going to show up no matter what the environment is. They just do everything right. They're going to show up, right? No matter what. Even if I wasn't out there greeting them, they'd show up every day. But it's the most improved. So I'll give the Bahama Bucks, for example. We have a most improved attendance. And we announce it ahead of time. We talk about it. Like the first 6 weeks, if you miss this 6 weeks, you have the most improved for the next 3 weeks, we're going to have Bahama Bucks for you. If you have the next most improved the next 3 weeks, we have a gift card for you. Just because we want them, those are the guys that we want to get in there. The kids that aren't making it, the ones that we're having attendance meetings about, those are the kids that we want to get to school. Now, the ones that show up every day no matter what, they're going to show up. We want to reward them when we do, but we want to improve it. We want to get those kids that are struggling, we want to get them to school every day. So to kind of sum it all up, student achievement, we're increasing the rigor of our instruction, our teacher planning. We have to utilize our tea time better, and I think we have a good plan going forward, heading up to the start. Attendance is a huge thing. All the positive things that we're doing to get kids to school. The bottom line is, I don't know what was done last year because I wasn't here. But I do know is if you've always done if you always do what you've always done, you're always going to get what you always got. We have to do more. We have to do more. We just can't sit and do nothing. We have to do more than what we've been doing. And at the end of the day, when we reflect back on what we're doing, if all of this stuff we're doing to improve attendance doesn't work, we'll try something different. And we'll keep going until we get to where we want to go. Do you guys have any questions for me?
When you implemented you said the 13 questions, was that the beginning or this new semester?
This new semester is when I did the teacher planning PD.
How do you think that the kids now that you're looking at previous year data, how do you think our students did with the testing and everything for this first semester?
Well, we're in the middle of doing our map, we're doing our map testing right now. And then of course we have unit tests. So we're going to use that map testing that we're just completing right now to help identify those kids that I'm talking about. Those ones that are, I'm sure the teachers have a good idea. But that map testing that we're completing right now, we don't have the data on it yet because we're just now finishing it. We're in the middle of it actually, which is why we're not starting until the next week with the pullouts. But that's the data that we're going to use to identify those kids. And once we identify them, the goal is to get them to meets.
When is our senior retakes for their
December. They just had them.
We just had those.
Mm-hmm. How many did we have this year?
How many took it? Ooh, Mama, how many took it?
Just seniors or everybody?
Seniors, the retakes.
Probably in the 30s, maybe. They're not
It was
separated
overall
seniors, so it's
the-
any kid who didn't
Yeah.
pass. So it could be a
Oh,
sophomore.
okay.
So
Sophomores or seniors.
total, it was probably in the 80s-ish total, all tests combined. I don't know how many of them would have
Yeah,
been
I don't know how many specifically were seniors as far as the retakes are concerned.
But overall, you said about 80 maybe?
Total, but that's total tests.
Yeah, no.
So like if Ms. Gonzalez took 4 tests, I'm counting her 4 times.
Oh, gotcha.
You know what I mean?
But it's not
Right.
that, yeah.
And then that data isn't, I think it is finalized in public like tomorrow or next week.
Yeah, we'll know
Oh,
soon.
And we only have preliminary type stuff right now.
Okay. Now, like, whenever you're doing, and I'm sorry, it's probably a dumb question, but like, whenever you're doing semester final grades or the tests, do those, the questions you're asking, are those like be the same with the way it would look on the star?
Absolutely. They're going to be like the unit tests, like the semester test, the unit tests. Like for an English teacher, for example, her semester test would be like from Study Sync, so it would look exactly like the unit test that they did. And I'll use English specifically because I know more about it. Those specific tests work at a really high level. They're primarily 2 and 3 level. So the short answer is yes. The semester tests, they do look like the star as far as the level of question is concerned.
And one of the hardest things on all campuses, and I think y'all will agree with it, is getting teachers to buy into the level 2 and level 3 questioning, because what it feels like as a teacher is you don't get it. Because if I give you a level 1 question, you're going to know the answer, and I want you to know the answer because I feel good about myself. And so, would y'all agree? Getting teachers to buy into, make it hard on them. Silence, struggle is a good thing. And that has been something that's been tough to get over to our teachers.
And it's no excuses. Like no excuses. Oh, well, they don't have the foundation. Oh, well, they don't know the level. I have to work at a level 1 because they came in.
No,
they didn't
they are
learn
who
this.
they are. We
They
gotta
didn't
take
learn
them.
this in elementary. They didn't learn this, and it doesn't matter. No excuses. Like no excuses. We have to have those level 2 and 3 questions. We have to have the rigor. We cannot soft toss it, and we can't make any excuses, and we can't quit till every kid learns.
Thank you.
No, you're 100% right.
Thank you, Mr. Gensler. Good
Thank
job.
you.
All right, Jasper. Jasper, I'm putting the clock on you.
I cut mine down a lot. Because I'm just going to sit down.
Appreciate you.
Thank you, sir.
Good luck to Kansas City this weekend, Gary.
Thank you, sir.
They might need it.
No, they don't.
Hit the arrow forward and backward. Make sure it works before you get going. There you go.
So what we did is ours is a little different, but we do the same thing. So I want you to know that. But I'm going to talk about the importance of assessment data and instruction. So we take different types of data. So there's formative data and informal data. And so we use unit assessments, and like MAT testing would be more of a formative data. STAR testing would be formative. And those are powerful ways to ensure that our teaching is focused on the student's needs and that learning reaches its maximum. And it's important to use different types of assessments to guide the instruction. So like even if it's a bell work, it's still a bell ringer, it's still an assessment or an exit certificate. It lets you know what they've learned at that time. So when we analyze our unit assessments, they give us immediate content-specific feedback. So we can actually look at those and break it down by student, class period, and TEAC. So what exactly they're needing. And so I just put a little math sample up here, and I'm sorry it's a little bit. If you look up there, that's showing you each TEAC. So it's telling us how the percentage for each TEAC, and then on the side is their MAP data. And we have training on Wednesday to really learn how to dig in deep and assess MAP data better. So I'm not going to speak a lot on that because I don't want to misinform you until I know what I'm talking about. But it does guide you. Like MAP is a really good predictor for how they're going to perform on STAR. Do I agree that it's 100% accurate? No, because every test day is different, and I think a lot of other factors are incorporated into that.
But what it does do, like if Jasper was to take that, it's going to kick out, when she misses, it's going to kick out the standards she missed. And so as a teacher, you can go back and look at those standards. And if all 30 of you missed it, well, that's on me. But if 29 of you missed it and she just didn't get it, well, then I just need to talk. Does that make sense? It does inform that.
And so that was just a continue. But I can also break down data by teacher and class period. And that helps because as a teacher, when you're teaching secondary school, not all your classes are going to test out the same. It just depends on who you get in there and how they're doing. And the period of the day makes a big difference and all that. So that allows us to know where we're going to have to teach. So like a teacher that really wants to stay on the same thing in every period at secondary, that doesn't work. You know, like one day one class might be here and the next class might be here, and that's okay. So what we look for is patterns, and we identify concepts that students performed well on and which ones they struggle with. If a large number of students struggle with a particular concept, then, like for example, solving equations or identifying where they are with like linear equations or whatnot, or inferencing, you can look at that data and you're going to know if you've had more than 70% of students not get that concept, then that's a clue that you need to reteach the whole class. If less than that, then you can go into small groups and teach that.
It wasn't me. It was the power. No, she's not done yet.
Can I open my computer and feel my
She's about a quarter of the way.
I
Rebecca.
want to say something that I
Want me to unshare?
And then
You gonna put yours up?
I can. Or yours is.
Okay.
The outcome of the unit assessment, it helps us determine whether our students are ready to move on to the next unit. So if they're not ready, then we need to go ahead and continue reteaching. A lot of times, like with some contents, you can, like English, you're always spiraling back. And so with science, for example, they'll hit something and then they'll have to move on, but they always come back to it. So you're constantly reteaching. You have your... it helps you plan your differentiated instruction. So like when you have tiered activities, this is hard for teachers because it's planning what's necessary for that student. And so like, you're really looking at what does each student need individually. And that's where the planning comes in really important, because as a...
Keep talking. Keep talking.
When you're looking at the individual student's needs, you're wanting to make sure that, let's say me, I struggle with reading and I know I need to read something 3 times. That teacher's going to have to know, okay, this one's going to have to read a few times, but this one's going to, have more time, so I need to have something for those quick learners too. Your struggling students, you want to have scaffold instructions, you want to have additional practice, peer support. That's the best way kids learn is from each other, so including stuff like that. And then you use your assessment data to organize your small groups. You don't want your high kids that mastered a TEAC to be sitting in something you're teaching them that other kids didn't, because they're going to get bored and then behavior comes up. You want them to have intensive and then targeted support.
Now to be your computer.
It's not working.
No, it won't be the mouse now, because now I've plugged in your computer. So just click the slide.
Okay, so then I kind of just hit on that. But you have your high performers, so when you're doing your planning, your high performers, you want to challenge them. So if you're teaching a skill you know they mastered, then you need to have something more for them to get challenged. And our teachers are good at that. Your on-level students, they might need more consolidation, reassurance, reinforcement, and then your struggling students, you're just going to have to give them more foundational targeted support with interventions. And then we have targeted interventions, and that's where your kids are really struggling in a specific skill, and you plan those targeted instructions with your small group, and you're trying to fill gaps. Sometimes you can't fill a gap. You got to just take them where they're at by the hand and keep running with them, and they'll catch up. A lot of times we think that they won't, but they will. And then pacing, that's a big deal. That's how the class is running, like everything that's happening. So like you're going to know where to slow down, where to stop and ask your questions. It's going to help you know how long you should spend on your direct instruction, your guided practice, and your independent practice. And I'm going to skip that one because it's the same thing that I just talked about. You want to track your growth over time, so you want to use your longitudinal, I don't say that word right, to track your progress over the school year. That helps you identify long-term trends because you might see a trend pattern over a couple years, and then that lets you know as a teacher and even us, maybe we need to change how we're presenting it or the language. Because we're not doing it right anymore, because our language changes over the years. Like the other day a kid told me my hair looked mad or angry or I don't know, some weird word, and I was like, I hope that's a good thing. Is that good? And they're like, yeah, that means your hair looks really good. I'm like, okay. So we got to keep that in mind when they're talking, because we got to meet them where they're at. Also, collaborative planning, it's really, really important. So like during our PLCs, that's what's happening a lot of times. And for all of us, we can say that that's essential because you want to plan for them to go on to the next grade level. Nobody's wanting to teach to keep them for another year. So you're also wanting to work with your students collaboratively and encourage them to reflect on their own assessment data too. And so you want your teachers to set goals with them, and we're working on that. Not all teachers on my campus do that. A lot of them do. But you want them to have academic goals with their students because that empowers our students to take responsibility for their academic achievement. And it gives them a sense of feel-good and success, and I think that's what's most important. And then we also want them tracking their data. So a lot of our students have data trackers, and they look like little bar graph type things, and so they'll either put in their grade or color it where they're at, and that lets them know where they're going or where they need to work harder and stuff like that. And that's it, really. It just offers immediate feedback, for our kids.
And you've heard Jasper talk about it and Gensel talk about it, but one common thing you're going to hear is small groups. And small groups was something that elementaries have always done, and we're trying to make it shift because I think small groups are where you get your money. What a small group would look like is we could have this whole class, and Christy's the teacher, and Christy could be running small groups. Because she could have stations set up where everybody's busy doing something independent or something small. But the time I get to Christy, she's working on the teaks that this group needs to work on. And that's when you had your groupings. That's why you group them like that. So when they get to you, they're grouped in a way that you can help. Everybody's got their individual needs, but if you look at enough individual needs, you're going to find some common needs for those individuals. And that's how those small groups help.
Yeah, like sometimes it's good to have like a high learner, a mid learner, and a low learner because the high learner is getting challenged by explaining how to do it to the low learner, the mid learner, but the mid learner is still getting something from both. Does that make sense? Sometimes that's not a good grouping. Sometimes you need all your high levels together and all your low levels together because you just need to go in there and be more targeted.
And it's fluid and can change all the time.
And it should change all the time. It should never be the same table group. It should never be the same small group you're pulling. You always want it rotating. And that's actually one thing that we're working on tomorrow. I have a meeting with our CICs, and we're going to sit down and we're going to really structure our tea time based on all these things.
Whenever you're doing like the assessments and you can see exactly which child is where, let's just say like a parent emails, hey, my kid bombed that assessment. Could a parent see that? Like maybe we could email it to the parent, this is where he messed up, or he or she, or...
Yeah, I mean,
awesome.
you just, that's where the communication went.
Yeah,
Teachers is so vital, you know, and I think for so long, as a parent myself, before I got into education, some parents get intimidated by that because you don't know what to ask for, what to look for. And so once you have that communication, a really good teacher is going to sit down and break it down with you. You just, you know, you got to ask because some people don't want it.
There's a flip though. She said the parents can get intimidated. I feel like we inherited a district of staff that can kind of get intimidated the other way. They're almost scared to talk to the parents. And we're really trying to break those walls down because it's a team.
And I know you do have a lot of your teachers who do reach out because I get those emails constantly on, you have an update on the grades, maybe the grade book. They do a really good job with that. I do know I would be excited and appreciate if, like, to see, I didn't know that, and if I could just be like, hey, he didn't do good.
Show me where.
Show me where. So, you know, I always say if I know what's going on in the classroom, I can help him at home, which in turn helps you. Because if you have, the way I'm understanding it is there's a bunch of different students learning it 3 different ways. You have your kids who already know and they're trying to do something different. Then you have someone who gets it, needs a little work, and they just don't understand it. And you're asking this one teacher to do all of it.
Well, actually, it's more than 3 learners. There could be a room with 20 different kinds of learners.
Right.
I mean, you don't know what you're getting.
It's a lot on one person, and then we're telling y'all to just create magic. So
it's hard, but I can't say it can be done perfect because I don't think anybody can do it perfect. You just got to trial and error things, and you got to find what works for you.
And I think it can, and I think it's communicating with the parents, helping them understand, like, hey, no, let me break it down, and that's just adding on something different. But I do know that if we get it in our kids' heads, starting from South with, like, the small group that you're doing, if we do that, when they go to, let's just say Gensler, he's not going to be showing those percentages because it has started at such
Foundational
a young
level.
age, and I think that that's something that y'all are growing, and I'm excited to see all the progress, and I appreciate all the work that y'all do.
When you hear kids left behind, that's what hurts. You know, like the first time we had, you know, looked at it that way, it's a gut, you know, wrencher, you know, and nobody's in this business to do that. And that's where the state fails us, I think, by misinterpreting the data to let kids and everybody else believe, well, if I just get here, that's good enough. Well, good enough's not good enough. And
They
if
have
we're
to
trying to
believe in themselves.
prepare our kids to be, you know, competitive in the futures, we've got to hit, like he said, quit soft pitching it and hit the ball at a higher level.
Yes. Thank you.
Thanks, Jasper.
Thank
Good
you.
job.
Thank you.
Christy, yours is on yours for sure. And then Tipton, I have yours.
No, laptop just in case.
Just in case.
Always have a plan B.
Oh, I'm sorry, pitch it at a higher level. Our coach. On the phone line.
We all understood.
I say hit it at a higher level. Got pitch it hard.
Alrighty. It's good to see all of you again. We didn't get to see you on December, so hope you all had a wonderful holiday, and thank you for all that you do. You know, happy Board Appreciation. We appreciate everything that you guys do for us, so thank you. It's your evening. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We've been launching all year. It was funny when I had this up the other day. I was like, yeah, you know, we launched into the new year, and Mr. Ricci said, y'all been launching all year. Well, we still are, this time into the second semester. And so I'm just covering some of the same basic information. It is where kind of we've been, where we are, and then what we're doing moving forward. So our current enrollment is 295. We actually just had 3 enroll over the last 2 days. Our attendance for the first semester was 94. So when you saw our attendance earlier at like 92 something, it's our first week back from the holiday was rough. And we got lots of sick kids right now. So we'll continue to battle back up. But we're super proud to be at 94% for that first semester. The types of data that we use is same that you've heard. We have already conducted our middle of year map. I'll show some of that to you. Of course, we did beginning of the year at the beginning of the year. We also use our content teacher assessment data. Some of those are quick checks in between unit assessments, and then whether it's a do now or a exit ticket, all of that stuff that's used by the content teachers to see where kids are at. In Eduphoria, we use mastery trackers. We also have utilized phonics screeners this first couple of weeks in our RLA classes to get more data to see where we can really narrow down student needs. And then we also have used previous STAR data to create assessments. I talked about this back in September when we talked about essential standards. Everything that we do is focused around those items that are going to be seen year after year, are connected to the real world and what kids are going to use forever and ever, amen. And then, of course, those that are foundational. So I'm going to show you a little bit of data. This is our map data from the beginning of the year and our middle of year. Fall is considered beginning of year, and winter is considered middle of the year. Really, the thing to see here is not that the numbers are great, and we'll never be satisfied. So even if we get wonderful, we're going to want more. So we'll just put it that way. But what this does tell us is when we look at all, the first one says math, all is at 33 and then 33. And it looks like, oh, we didn't grow. We actually did grow, because what MAP does is it gets more rigorous over the year, because it's talking about where should a third grader be at the beginning of the year, where should a third grader be at the middle of the year, and where should a third grader be at the end of the year. And so the rigor of the test actually goes up throughout the year, which is the first little bar graph there. Our data stayed the same, which means our students are holding their own, but we want them to grow. And so, as I said, we're not satisfied, but we did see we're stable, which is not bad. We'd rather be stable than unstable or dropping. So we're not happy, but we'll be satisfied for now and stay hungry. Next here is just example of RLA data. This is how it looks like when we look at a MAP report. What this does is it tells us the percentile that our students are in. We don't like red, so we will take every other color than red. And so we're looking to grow that as the year goes on. This is just an example for reading. And then another example of data that we use in reading is something like this. This is on each unit that we've had. We also used does not meets, approaches, meets, and masters. And then we break it down by specific TEKS, and then across each unit. Every time one of those TEKS are tested, then we look at how our students performed. And I'll explain here in just a little bit how that data is used. But here's another RLA example. Then we'll look at science. Here again is the achievement. This is our latest MAP scores. So this is our achievement at the middle of the year. You can see for science is a stronger subject for us. Our red is smaller. All the other colors are bigger. That's the easiest way to look at it. So we're going to continue to work in science. Also in science, this is an example, the exact same thing we were talking about with their central standards. Those are the ones that we want to make sure 100% of our kids have before they move on to the next grade. So what we do is when we identify those, we look at, for example, if 75% of kids are getting that standard, then we're going to move on. If it is one that it says is only at 45%, that tells us 45% of our kids, we need to work on that standard. We're not going to let them go yet. So we're going to split that into either instructional groups, small groups. You'll look at how our teachers set that up here in just a moment. Or we'll also be using our Tier 2 and Tier 3 interventions during our win time. But this is just another example of actual science data that we use. And then here is some examples for math. Same thing here is our MAP. Math has been a struggle, and we continue to work on that. We have introduced doing RTI for math as well. We've primarily focused on RLA over the last couple of years, so I do think that working on specific interventions for math will help us in this area. This is the math tracker. All of our data is put into Eduphoria, and every teacher has access to this. Across the top, you'll see 5.4.b. Those are our TEKs. And then it tells you out of how many questions that student, this is broken down specific by student, or you can put it all together and do it by grade levels. You can do it by class, you can do it by teacher, however you want to look at the data. There's plenty of it. But this tells you how many times they've gotten the question right. And there's actually a toggle switch up there, and you can switch between the fraction or the proportion correct or the percentage. Same thing, we look at raising those percentages. But that's another way that we look at data. And then how we use it. So our small groups and stations, the expectation across our campus is that every single class has at least 2 days a week that they're pulling small groups and that they pull 2 groups during that time. Quite a few of our teachers pull groups every day, but the campus expectation is at least 2 times a week and at least 2 groups during that time. And then small groups, this is actual teacher examples of their small groups. And there's an example of RLA, of math, and then of science up there. So you can kind of get a picture of what they look like and what they're working on. Our student teacher is up there too. So our teacher has a group and our student teacher has a group. There's a vocabulary and a word wall. Up in science, they're working on some technology. They've got some independent work. You'll see up there also teacher table. That's what Mr. Ritchie kind of referenced earlier, that they're going to be moving around or pulling back to the teacher to work on specific tasks or specific skills. And that's that time during general Tier 1 instruction that happens. And then the math example, same thing there, task cards, problem sets, there's a teacher table there as well. So that's actual in use right now in our classrooms. And then for RTI, once we have worked with those students in those small groups, when students have still not grasped or mastered that content, they kind of hover in between Tier 1 and Tier 2, and that just means they're going to continue to get some extra support during our win time. If during that win time we're still struggling and we're missing some foundational skills, maybe in reading they're more than 2 years behind, then they will be recommended to Tier 3. Tier 3 is a more intense intervention. You can see up here that Tier 2 is across all content areas, but it's 3 days a week during WIN, and it's covering current concepts, so things that they're learning on grade level at that time. Tier 3 is also in our content areas, but it's 5 times a week, and it's working on foundational skills, especially for reading and math. And this is an actual 4th grade example where within a pod, they've already split their kids out. It also says what TEK or what skill they're working on, so the pod teachers can coordinate, because it's a whole grade level that's working together. The 2 math teachers, one is taking Tier 2, the other one is taking Tier 3. So they're all working on intervention during win time. And then our connections to instruction, I kind of spoke to this earlier. Our essential standards, like I said, include those that are frequently assessed, those that are going to get them to the next grade level, and then those that are going to contribute to their lifelong experience. We spiral back our weaker concepts into stations, and then those students that have been identified for additional support are supported in Tier 2 or Tier 3. And then we use every piece of data we can get our hands on, or diagnostics, to make sure that we have appropriate resources to support those teachers to intervene in our kids, for our kids. Any questions?
So you said during, whenever they're pulled out on their Tier 2 and Tier 3, and you're doing that during the win time. What is win time?
It's what I need. Whatever I need is what WIN stands for.
So they're not missing anything
No.
or
It's plugged
anything.
into the
It's
day.
plugged.
It is separate from everything else, from all the instructional time. This is simply WIN time. They do also work on Zern and MindPlay, which is 2 computer-based programs to support math and RLA during that time. They split it 30 and 30. And then there are some other special populations that get pulled during that time, but otherwise these students will go between the 2 teachers to get the additional support that they need on the current.
I know you didn't cover this in any of that, but do you currently have a GT in your school?
Yes, we sure do.
So when are those kids being pulled?
all of those kids are pulled during wind time. So
Okay.
those, with the way that the split is working, except for third grade, there's a special situation there. But everyone else, the GT teacher is doing tier 2, so 3 days a week they're doing intervention, and 2 days a week they're doing GT. For same thing for 5th grade. For 4th grade, we've got some time to make up from the first semester, so they're doing 4 days of GT. We have 2 additional staff. Well, actually, it's our special staff, our PE teacher, and our music teacher. They're helping out, working on foundational skills, high frequency words. So they're helping with tier 2, and then the other teacher is doing tier 3. So everybody's getting.
Everyone's okay. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you, Christy.
Thank you.
All right, Doug, you're it.
Going off yours?
Yes.
All right.
So the little clicker should work again.
That's what I was just talking about.
Let me get it up on that screen real quick. There we go. There you go.
All right. Once again, thank you guys for everything. We really do appreciate y'all and everything you do for our kids. I'm going to try to go through. It's probably going to sound like you're watching a movie for the 4th time at this point on some of this stuff, but I'm going to kind of go briefly through some of the stuff at the beginning, which is really just kind of a recover of what we talked about back in September. And I'm not going to hit it as hard because these guys have really done set the foundation on everything because we're all speaking the same language. This is our enrollment right now. You can see the pre-K at 85, kinder at 91, first at 103, second at 97, and our early childhood at 16. Our attendance is at 93.62%. Here's what we're going to kind of go through today: how we assess using the data, ELAR fluency checks, and the widely important goals that we have set. Math first and second grade module exams and their comparison, and some of our RTI, which you've already got a lot of information on from these guys. So how do we assess? If you remember back in September, we went over these. These are all the different types of tests that we assess over. And this slide breaks it down a little bit better. Kind of like Coach was saying, right now we're in the middle of our MAP testing, so we don't have any MAP data yet. TPRI starts next week. So these tests right here, these circle tests, Texas Key and TPRI, we're waiting to get that information so we can compare it from the first of the year. So that's not a lot of information that can inform us right now of how the kids are doing. So we really are primarily focusing on like our fluency checks and reading. MAP is currently in progress, so we're doing that this week. So what we're really using is we're using our common assessments in math. That's our mid-end of module tests, formal assessments, our biweekly assessments in ELAR. So that's going to be our fluency checks. And I'm going to kind of show you our growth over the year so far as we're going. And then the Mind Play and CERN. It's kind of like Christy was saying. Those are what we use in the computer lab during our computer lab time when we're pulling small groups. So how do we look at the data and address the gaps? You guys have already seen this slide. We do the data walls and the sheets. We have it in a Google sheet. The teachers fill it out. We look over it in PLCs. We update it, and we keep track of where our kids are. We group the students based on similar needs, identify specific skills and resources needed for small group instruction, and we use the assessment data as well as ongoing and formal assessment to build ability groups and small groups. Same thing that they talked about. We do the same thing where we're going to look at our kids, we're going to look at where areas they're weak in, fluency-wise, math-wise, and we're going to group our kids accordingly for our small group instruction according to where their gaps are. So this is our ELAR fluency checks, and this is the beginning of the year right here, and then your middle of the year right here where we're at. So pre-K, this is naming letters and sounds. At the first of the year, we were at 7.81%. At the middle of the year, we were at 34.18% of students. So we moved there. Kindergarten went from 28.21% to 35.25%. And then first grade, we measure our fluency at that point, starts going into words per minute. And so they were at 18.79 at the beginning of the year and at 25.06 currently. Second grade, was at 33.37, and then currently at 50.98 words per minute. So we have seen some growth in fluency, which is a good thing, but we still got a long ways to go. This is kind of what I want to show you. These are goals that are set in our PLCs with our team. So they base it off of what they're wanting to accomplish by the end of the year. They're called widely important goals, or WIGs. So pre-K had 70% of students will identify all letters and names by May of 2025. We did not start pulling their data because they are pre-K until November. But as you can see, they're at 20 and they moved to 23%. Kindergarten, 80% of students will know all letter sounds by May of 2025. September, we were at 17%. In December, we're up to 25%. We've grown a little bit. We could still do better. First grade students will go from 36% developed in fluency to 45%. We went from 19.66 to 36%. And then in second grade, we'll go from 23% developed on fluency to 50% developed by the end of the year. And at the beginning of the year, we were at 16, and right now we're at 32.29.
What causes the drop off? Go back a slide. What causes the drop off in November on each category?
You know, I don't really know exactly what causes that, except for they're getting ready for their break. I really don't know, because we've seen that trend where you see this drop, but then when they come back after that break, then they do better. It's something. It's just an anomaly that we don't really know what causes that drop, but it's a weird thing. I don't know if it's when the testing time happens, if it's the time of year, but it happens in all of them. So I'm not exactly sure what causes that, but what we want to do is obviously, hopefully, that just continues to rise as we go on.
One of the other things it's different text complexities and genres every time. And I think that November one was a nonfiction one, which is usually a little tougher.
That's right.
And so that, and especially if I can't see the numbers from here, my glasses obviously don't work. That's when they're really starting to get longer. Like first grade, you went from very basic to longer stories. But I want to say that one was a nonfiction one, and that's usually where we'll see a drop too.
So I guess Jess, we're talking about where they stayed the same, but they really grew.
So they have like each month the complexity of whatever they're asking them gets higher.
It increases. Okay.
Yeah, not the same test every month. They're actually, yeah, it's a good way to put it. First and second, beginning of year and end of year math data. What I really want you to focus on, and you can see all of it, but like Gensler talked about, we're trying to get out of the language of approaches is good enough. We're trying to get that language out of our teachers, so we don't really highlight that approaches. That's great, but it kind of means like you got potential, but you're not there. And so what we want to do is we want to focus on the meats, and that's where we really focus with our teachers, is moving that meats. Yes, it's great that your approaches is moving, but we went from, first grade went from beginning of the year at 39.78%, and then at middle of the year they went up to 46.24%. So we did have some growth there, which was good. And then in second grade, we were at 34.62%, and we went up just a little bit, not enough, but went up to 35.37%. So I wouldn't even really calculate that as really a whole lot of growth in second grade math. Masters, of course, that's great. That's icing on the cake. That's good. But we really want to get those approaches kids moved to the meets level. That's what we really want to do. And right now, just like he said, the approaches, those are kids. Those are the left behind kids. That's where we call it the left behind report, and that's where we got to stop feeling good about that with our kids. We've got to start focusing on getting to that meets level, because bottom line is approaches isn't good enough. It means you're still falling short, even though they say they passed. But this is how we measure it for our kids, since we don't have a STAR test. So RTI, kind of the same things they talked about, so I won't go completely into it, but if you have some questions on it, please ask. Tier 2 expectations, they take place during the computer lab time. So anytime a teacher has their 30-minute computer lab, they have a small group they're pulling. They're required to pull. and the other kids are working on Mind Play or Zern, depending on what day of the week. So if I had a group, this group right here, they might be working with me, and then this group right here might be working with me, and we flip halfway through on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then this group right here and this group right here on Tuesday, Thursday. And we might, does that make sense? And everybody else is on the computer working on either Mind Play or Zern, which one's Mind Play is ELAR, and Zern's our math program this year. The classroom will serve 2 groups, just like I said. Lowest tier 2 group goes 3 times a week. Other tier 2 groups go 2 times a week. They're required to use district-approved instructional resources, which are given to them. If they decide they want to try something else, it's fine, but it has to be approved by our CICs. Tier 3 expectations take time during the RTI block, which is separate from the computer. So we have 2 separate times going for our small groups. During RTI, they're met with 5 times a week, except that's by our interventionists. During that time, our teachers are also pulling small groups. So our tier 3 students that are in intervention will be pulled, but during that time, we can't do tier 1 instruction. So we end up doing tier 2 instruction, so we're still doing small groups. So in that time in the RTI, my really low tier 3 kids are going to go, and they're going to be pulled by the interventionist. Well, during that time, I'm going to break my class up into groups, and that's going to be another station rotation for our ELAR. So we have 2 of those. Same thing on district-approved resources. Those are the 2 things we use with dyslexia kids and tier 3 kids. And we do maintain and upload documentation every 3 weeks. Our interventionists do. And our teachers are now required also to enter that information into a spreadsheet for all our tier 2 students that are being served. All right, I know I went really fast, but I was trying to get some questions.
Okay, I didn't know if we still used the editorial, but I saw it in one of the presentations.
Yes,
I've asked before, but I know you can track, I guess, walkthrough, power walks, whatever y'all call them now.
That's what you can put your.
What are y'all requiring each week or month or year? And I guess where are we at on that?
Well, we enter them in the school net. And that tracks everything. I believe our requirement is 10 a week, and that is with
10 a week with a coaching conversation. So I also have this other form. Y'all keep talking about
per
school.
admin or per curriculum instructor or per vice or per assistant principal or how?
For all admin, for all leadership. Keep talking about that. And Bum, you may chime in while I pull up this other document.
What we had done in the past, like a couple of years ago, we were trying to hit 20-25 a week, but we weren't having to follow up afterwards.
It became a game, Ron, and I'm not going to lie, I was trying to win that game
We had
all
a
the
leader
time.
board,
Just
yeah.
trying to get as many as I could. And so I wanted them to slow down and follow it with the actual coaching conversation. And that is, sorry, y'all keep going again.
So each person tries to get 10 a weekend. So I would do 10, Stacy would do 10, Doug would. The CICs, now that they are all 3 on all 4 campuses, we had to make that change at Christmas. The ones that have just now taken over some secondary, they're trying to spend more time there until they get to know the teachers better.
So they put them in that for Bum. This is for me. And what I have them do is just a real quick, and the biggest thing for me is column G, because I just want a short note of what they observed and what the conversation was about. But that, I wanted something so I knew conversations were happening. We weren't just going and watching and then leaving. Does that make sense?
So like 2, 3, 4 minute in there. It's not like your 45-minute evals, right?
So no, we're trying to, now, we used to go 3 to 5 minutes. We're pushing for 5 to 8 minutes in the classroom, and then followed by the conversation. Could be anything from, like, if you're killing it, I'm just going to tell you, hey, that's awesome. I liked everything you're doing, but try this. If you're not killing it, it could be, hey, come to my office meeting, you need to sit and talk for a bit. What's the longest conversation y'all have had?
Or 15.
What's the shortest conversation you've had?
About 30 seconds.
And it just depends on the deal. But the biggest thing to me was, like Mom said, it was just, we were just trying to get as many as we could. And I was like, what are we getting out of that? Unless we go back and cycle back to the teacher and talk to them.
And it's a pretty intensive form back, too. the form that we're using for walkthroughs. It gives the teachers a lot of information, and we look at alignment. We've talked about the alignment between the curriculum and what's tested, what's taught, and then what is written. And so a lot of it has pieces that we can give feedback to the teacher on top of the conversation. So you get lots of glows and grows, and it's not a checkbox. I mean, you're actually given some good feedback. So
Got levels of questioning on there so they can identify if they hit a level 1, 2, or 3 question. I mean, it's a good form.
And it's good to identify where our struggling teachers need the coaching. So then when you go in, you can really coach them where they need and not where they don't need it. You're not guessing.
And it's making them get used to having this academic conversations all the time. That's, I mean, yeah, it's for the teachers, but it's for all of us too, to
well,
get
it's
used
also,
to having those conversations.
even just today, in a specific walkthrough I went in, our CICs are also working to provide them action steps to work on. And so one that I went in to do a walkthrough in, I could see what the CIC had been having that conversation with. So I looked for those same things and were able to provide support and feedback for that. So it's a collaborative conversation without additional time. So that CIC doesn't have to come tell me. I can see it right there in that school-mid system and be able to work in it.
I should see that for in a while. Since I guess.
Well, we almost went away from it this year, and it's funny.
I thought you had talked about it.
Well, it's funny you said it because I literally talked to Bob less than 3 days ago. Edge 40 has different components, and there's parts of it we may not continue to use next year because other people kind of caught up and made more efficient, effective things.
Anybody else?
They didn't ask you that, ask me that. Y'all gotta ask him something. No, thank you guys.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Y'all all did great. Thank y'all very
you
much.
all.
And thank y'all for everything you do. I got nervous, so.
I would like to comment on the students' ball game the other night. I sat with Rebecca and her parents at the Odessa game, and it was pretty. Both games were pretty rough. Y'all probably heard. I would like to comment on our athletes. Not once did I see a mouth back, a stare down, a retaliation. It was they got up off the floor, went to the other end. Very disappointed in the team who played and their actions. So I think when they come here, we probably need to have the ball.
Security.
No, I'm serious. I think it got. I didn't realize it was that bad until.
Basketball brings out the
saw
worst in humanity. I say it to
replays.
everybody that'll listen.
I did see replays, and I mean, we were there, but I thought our kids. I mean, in the past, I'd be, 10 years ago, I'd be like.
Throw down.
No, let's say the culture.
That's what
I mean,
it
you can tell
felt
the
like,
culture's getting there, and that's.
Yeah.
I mean, I
I'm
guess
just glad
proud,
we beat
I'm
them
proud of
because they were
that.
ugly.
That they're finally. It's growing.
Yes, sir.
So I would just want to say, I mean, it has to start somewhere. It can't just start on the court.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Okay, is that it for y'all?
Yes, ma'am. We're finally 2 hours later. We're done.
I guess we'll go ahead and go into board action items. The first one is deliberation and possible action to order a general election for the election of 2 positions, District 4 and 5, to be held on May 3rd, 2025.
Make a motion to accept as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Second is deliberation and possible action to approve the joint election agreement with the City of Lamesa.
Make a motion we approve as presented.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Third is deliberation and possible action to approve the annual financial audit report fiscal year 2023-24.
Make a motion to approve as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Fourth is deliberation and possible action to adopt a resolution that accomplishes the following. A, approves the settlement of pending litigation style Region 17 Education Center. Do you want me to read all that?
No, ma'am. I
Okay.
think you're-
A and B.
y'all
We can
good?
read it.
Yeah,
A and B,
no.
yeah. Okay.
I make a motion we approve as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Yeah.
Before we go, can we
Okay.
take a picture? of
Oh, yes,
everybody
yes,
now
yes,
that
that's right, I
April's
forgot.
Wait on April.
Oh, Lord. It's like-
in? Well, one of y'all, Frank, will you get one with your phone?